Your podcast, man. It is Wednesday, aka we got a lot of stuff to talk about. It's RP Wednesday. We got Andrew Wilson in the house, man. I'm excited for this one.
Hey, it's Anthony coming to you from Anthony's Check-In. We're just checking out Fresh and Fit here. We have Andrew Wilson in the house today. I really like this guy. He's one of the premier debaters on the internet right now, and I really like listening to his views. He is a Christian, and he comes from that angle with a lot of things that he does. So everything is kind of morally based, and really enjoy listening to him. I think he's a very smart guy, and I'm really happy to see him over here in Fresh and Fit. Due respect. So let's get into it now.
When you guys have been asking for this one for a bit, so we're making it happen, man.
Yep.
Quick announcement before we get into the show. Rumble.com/FreshandFit. As you guys know, that's the home base for us in case we ever do get canceled on certain topics that we're talking about off air. And then also check us out on casualclub.tv. As you guys know, that's where all of our content is. So if you ever are missing an episode or whatever, because we did have to take a bunch of our stuff off of YouTube, guys. It's all on Castle Club and Rumble, okay? Yes. But everything is on Castle Club. Some stuff isn't necessarily always on Rumble, right? Like the kickouts and everything else like that, behind-the-scenes stuff. Pre-show stuff, that's all on castleclub.tv, and we live stream on there as well, man. So check us out on castleclub.tv, rumble.com/freshandfit, and yeah.
Without further ado, guys.
Telegram group.
Yes, guys, we made a new Telegram that's free, by the way, and this is going to give you announcements, events, and live shows for us on Fresh and Fit, because as you guys know, you get notified sometimes it doesn't show up all the time, so tap into that as well. Pin in the comments.
Bam.
But without further ado, guys, welcome to the show, Andrew Wilson.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, who is Andrew Wilson? We know who you are, but they might not know who you are.
For the audience that might not know.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson. I'm the host of The Crucible. It's the fastest growing debate channel on the internet to my knowledge. I'm a blood sport debater, and I like to tangle up with various people and their ideologies, especially feminists. I particularly hate them. But they're hardly the only ones. Basically, anybody who exists on the progressive left, I consider to be an inferior scumbag who needs to get their ideology destroyed, preferably by me.
That's funny.
Right. Fair enough. So prior to, the blood sport debates that you've been hosting and everything else like that, where you beat the crap out of liberals online,
verbally.
Yeah, verbally. Yeah, verbally. We got to say that right because we're on YouTube.
Verbally.
Yeah. How did you take us through your upbringing? Where are you originally from? What's the Batman story?
Okay, so I'm from originally I grew up in California. I was born there.
What part?
Montclair.
Montclair. How far is that from? What major city is the closest to there?
Like Sacramento, I think.
Oh, okay. So North California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And was it as woke back then, obviously, as it is now? Probably not.
It was pretty bad.
It was bad even back then?
Yeah, even when I was growing up, yeah.
Damn.
Feminism's the air that you breathe. It's the sea that we swim in. It's the air that we breathe. It's everywhere, and it's indoctrinating, and there is no escaping it. All of us in this room are indoctrinated by it, whether we know it or not, and our forefathers would have laughed at us. They would have laughed at us. Even if you think that you're awesome and, man, I got it figured out and I have shrugged off my indoctrination, you're wrong. Yeah. It's so hard to get away from it. It's indoctrinated an entire, the entire West is basically swallowed by it.
Yeah, and even the Middle East is starting to switch
That's
up
true.
with it as well. Man.
Yeah, I got a bunch of guys from, all over the place. Iran sending me messages. Even Iran, they're like, man, like this is out of control over here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's out of control there.
Yeah. That's how you know. It's even when we were in Colombia not too long ago, like girls were saying some feminist rhetoric. So
yeah, back in the day, Colombia was a safe haven. It was just like feminine women. Yeah, go there, have fun, enjoy life.
Yeah.
But now it's just like almost like America.
Yeah,
it's crazy how they think. The
changed
mindset
a lot just over the past 10 years. I think the Western infiltration of all the guys going there, right, to simp and pay for box and stuff like that, inadvertently brought the very thing they ran from the United States for.
It was a well-kept
feminism.
secret until they brought people there and it messed it up. So
yeah. All right. So sorry. So you grew up in Montclair, California. What is
Took your household?
How old were you like as a kid? Like what decade were you there as a kid, roughly?
80s,
90s. 80s
and early 90s.
Okay, 80s, early 90s. And then did you go to college or?
No. I'm a robotics mechanic by trade.
Okay.
I apprenticed for that, but essentially I grew up in the California area for most of my youth, and then moved from there to Nevada,
Okay.
and then from
And that's where
Nevada.
you're based now, right?
No, Michigan.
Oh, you're in Michigan. Oh shit. Okay. Because yeah, you're always in Vegas, like you know. So well, I've seen you there a few times, obviously working with Rolo and stuff like that. But you're based out of Michigan. What's that like, man? Michigan.
What do you even do there, bro?
I mean, he drank. That's,
I was gonna say
Yo, bro, what do you
because
do
it's
there?
cold as hell. Like, how far are you
Yeah.
from Detroit?
a couple hours.
Couple hours. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But that's all you can do, really, is, you know, in the winter I drink, and then in the summer it's great, and I stop
Michigan's a
drinking.
blue state, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of red in blue states.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people are awesome in Michigan, especially in the Midwest
yeah.
area.
Of course.
They're all hardworking, kind of blue collar guys.
Of course.
And so most of them hate Democrats.
Yeah.
Again, the cities have the vote.
Yeah, the
You
cities
know?
have the vote, and not only that, they have the voice. Like, what I've noticed is, like, a lot of these places, right? Even New York, like, there's a lot of people think, man, New York is super woke. Not really. Once you leave New York City, like, there's a lot of conservative people in upstate, etc. The problem is that Democrats tend to be the loudest, is what I've noticed. They tend to be the loudest, right?
And they have the best and most well-organized lobbying groups. And
Yes.
they utilize youth as part of their lobbying efforts, and conservatives don't do that because when they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they're working.
Yep.
They're working. They're not agitators.
Yeah.
And the only during the Trump phenomenon did I actually start really seeing youth agitation, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
conservatives need more
Back in
youth
2016,
agitation.
you're talking, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, dude, so funny story. When I was in 2016, when he was campaigning, I was in. I had graduated from college, but I went back because he was started campaigning like 2015, 2014. He kind of announced that he was going to do it. And I was still going back and forth. Like, I'd go visit my old college friends because they were still in school. I was the oldest of my group, so like I would go back and hang out with them every now and then. And I had like my America Great Again hat. And dude, there was a very good chance that if you wore that hat in Boston in those years, someone would probably try to start a fight with you. You know, like, and it's even worse now. This is almost a decade ago. Now it's even more, woke. So it's just wild. And the thing about Michigan, because I knew it was a blue state, because I looked at the real estate there, because I was like, damn, there's some cheap houses here. I might want to invest. And then I realized, like, oh no, they have like all these squatting laws where like people can literally break into your house and then you can't get them out. And I'm like, what the hell?
A lot of those are local ordinances too,
Okay.
passed by Democrats.
Yeah.
And you see it, especially in the Detroit area. There's heavy ordinances for this for squatters because they have so many abandoned buildings.
Yeah.
Basically, junkies will take the building over, and suddenly, 30 days they have squatting rights.
Yeah,
It's insane.
wild. Baltimore also suffers from that.
Yeah.
Which, let me guess, but both of them are super blue.
Yeah.
It's like,
There's not many major metropolitan areas that aren't blue.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think someone, I forget who mentioned this stat, but they said that all the most dangerous cities in the United States that have the highest crime rates are all blue.
Yeah.
So
Makes
I mean,
sense.
That should be a sign, right?
Yeah.
A lot of emotions.
Yeah.
But Andrew, what was your awakening moment, you would say, to like the truth, reality, and away from this feminist like mindset?
So when I was younger, I didn't really give a shit about anything, man. California was not a place for grounded ethics. My dad was he was basically out of time. He was a product of the 40s. So he had me when he was older. So I had kind of an ethical foundation, which was out of the time zone I should have been in for the 90s. So I had conflict with people all the time. You know what I mean? I just really didn't understand how to get along very well.
Was he Christian?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very devout.
Strict.
Yep.
Where was
very
your father
devout.
from?
Protestant. He was born and raised California.
In California as well. Okay.
Yep.
So he just saw the slow degradation of the state.
Well, he
over
was
time.
he was an entertainer, and he got drafted. And when he got drafted,
Vietnam?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
They sent him to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines.
Okay.
And while he was there, his wife started fucking everybody in town, essentially. So
That's not your mom, right?
No.
Okay.
No. So when he came,
His first wife.
No, his first wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when he came back,
Yeah.
he also got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So she took the kids and left him for dead.
Wow.
Right? They gave him a year to live, left him for dead.
Wow.
And
Right when he got back.
yeah,
When did he get back?
I don't remember the exact year.
Okay.
Yeah, but basically when he got back, that was his story. She really did a number on him. So anyway, he was basically slated to die. He had to move back in with his parents, and it was a nightmare.
Wow.
And then he met my mom, and my mom was like a disco chick, basically. You know what I mean? But she devoted her entire life to him.
Okay.
It was a blended family, but it worked. and she
Because he had kids from a prior relationship.
yeah, and she did too.
Okay.
Yeah, she did too, and he did, and she had a rough story too. Her mom was a prostitute in Nevada,
Oh shit.
and she was like mentally handicapped, and she was murdered when my mom was a little girl.
Whoa.
Wow.
And so she was sent down south to live with her parents.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was just like almost miraculous that they met each other. And she was a nurse, and she took care of him and kind of nursed him back to health. He's still alive, even though
Wow.
he had a 1-year toe tag. So yeah,
Wow.
my big awakening moment, I remember, was he was talking, I was partying all the time when I was
Yeah.
18, 19. I remember he sat me down and he was like, listen, I would give anything to be in your normal body. I would give anything on earth to be in your normal body, and you're destroying it for nothing.
Wow.
Like, for what? That was my kind of like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start taking things a little bit more serious. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean?
What year was this when he told you this, roughly?
Well, let's see. I was maybe 19. So 21 years ago, roughly.
Holy shit.
That is
Okay.
dark, bro.
Yeah.
Big awakening.
Yeah.
What'd you do after that conversation? What was the first step that you made?
Well, the first thing I did was I put my nose to the grindstone and started working, and I really wanted to make a good life for myself and have a family. So I started taking myself off the board. I stopped basically man whoring around. Right?
Okay.
And
He focused.
yeah, and that's that's the way that I went. I met my wife. My wife had children from her basically high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And then she was married and divorced. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to work out.
Yeah.
But same thing. She completely devoted her life to me. And we had a rocky start. But, I mean, we've been happily married for, I think, 12 years exactly.
Nice.
You found a good one.
Nice. You made it
Yeah,
work.
she was great.
Yeah.
She's been fantastic. Now,
Did
the
you come
people-
with kids as well, or no?
No,
you didn't come with children.
And people always, I get a lot of shit for that.
Yeah.
But what's funny is it's not a contrary position to understand that there's going to be outliers who are
Yeah, of
single
course.
moms.
Yeah.
But still having the general rule that you probably shouldn't date single moms,
Yeah.
still true.
Yeah.
I think we can agree there's a
Still
gray
true.
area
Yeah.
on certain things in the RP.
And see, I don't know if the audience just noticed that, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people that watch lack critical thinking skills. Like, he's just told you, yo, typically this doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
There's outliers though in everything.
Yes.
In this situation, right? In general practice, you probably shouldn't get married to a woman that has children from another relationship. However, Andrew was able to make it work, and you guys been happily married for a while. So hey, it is what it is. But for the general masses, it ain't gonna work for most people.
Look, man.
And he even admitted that. And it's like people still talk shit. So it's like,
Bro,
all right.
I tried it. It didn't work for me, but it works for him.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always going to be outliers.
I think as a man, bro, if you're successful, if you're on your grind, if you're
Yeah.
on the way up, and you've made it for yourself, you can make a choice for yourself, whatever you want to
There's
do.
always exceptions to the rule, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be general practices that you should probably avoid, but some guys can do it. It is what it is.
Well, this stuff didn't exist either when I was growing up. Just so you know,
When did you get
there
when did-
wasn't this kind of information that was out there. What is considered the red
Red
pill
pill?
now
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
even
yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That was just like something that was brand new for me when I was growing up. A blended family was
Common.
That was every other person had a
Are your
blended
parents still
family.
together to this day? Shit. So it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still together to this day,
Yeah.
and they just adore each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again,
So your dad's like 80 something. Your dad was born in the 40s. Dude, he was alive during World War II. Yeah, well, the end of it pretty much,
Yeah.
right? Vietnam,
yep,
Kennedy assassination,
yep,
civil rights,
yep,
marches,
all that.
Martin
knows
Luther
the tr-
King,
he knows the
Malcolm
truth,
X.
bro. He knows the truth.
And he was
Yo!
he was a staunch, I mean, diehard conservative. I was born. He was a conservative, and when he dies, he is as far right as they come.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
one, two,
Loathe
check.
Democrats, and he put a really good foundation of loathing the left into me. And
I was gonna ask where the so because like a lot of people, right? I'll admit it. Like I had a very liberal mindset before, and then as I got older, I was like, what the fuck? This is bullshit. Like you become wiser, you get older, and then you start making money, and you're like, wait, what do you mean I got to give this to people that don't want to work? This is stupid. And then you naturally just start to become more and more conservative and Republican. You know, it is what it is. For you never had that.
No,
I guess
no,
you're
it was-
always right.
And my mom always backed his play. But I mean, my earliest memories are of my dad looking at the television with the Clintons on, you know, and going, "This guy's a fucking traitor! I can't believe it! This son of a bitch needs to get put in irons." I mean, that's my early memories of my father. You know, and
Swear
I'd
to
walk in the
TV.
living room and he'd be like, "Hey son, how you doing? You know, how is everything?" He'd be like, "Fine." He'd go, "Well, that's great. This fucking traitor." that's my earliest memories of my dad.
Yeah. Well, you're old enough to remember Reagan. Was that
Not really.
No,
Not really.
You were like
So, like, kind of Bush was early Bush was first Bush was a little bit clear to me.
Okay.
And then after that, mostly Clintons are where I started to cut my teeth on politics or even started paying attention. I was still a kid. Little
gotcha.
Kid.
Okay.
Question. So you mentioned the red pill.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on the red pill itself?
Well, so it's funny when you have debates on this. The red pill itself does not exist. What exists is an idea, a catalog idea, and you're using the red pill as a descriptor for this idea.
Okay.
That's all it is. So the idea, at least from my perspective of the red pill, is we want to know what is descriptively true before we make prescriptions for anything, right? So let's start with what is descriptively true. The red pill says men and women aren't equal. That was the first thing I saw. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's something good here, right?
Yeah.
Little pushback to egalitarianism. They also make other claims, too. They make claims about what women are attracted to, what they're not attracted to, what men are looking for, what they're not looking for. They're trying to get into kind of the sociology of the pairing of men and women.
Yeah.
From my perspective, almost all of the descriptors of the red pill line up perfectly with Christian ethics. It's when you get into prescriptions that we start having troubles. So, for instance, I know you're infamous for this,
Yeah.
right? But the have sex with 50 women thing, right?
Yeah.
Just so I make sure I don't get this position wrong, but I can give you like a counter example of what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Can you lay your position on that out?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would agree, right, that the dating marketplace has changed,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Women have changed, right? They think they're equal to you, the egalitarian thing that we talked about before. So since the dating marketplace has changed significantly and women have more sexual experience now than ever before because they think they're men and they can have sex and have relationships just like men, etc., and be promiscuous and not deal with the same ramifications. What guys have to do is kind of go in and understand how women operate in today's day and age. And I think a good way to do that, right? Obviously, there's a multitude of ways, but one way to do it is obviously to have experience so that you're not getting into a relationship or a situation with a woman and you're not aware of her nature and you don't know how to deal with it. I kind of like, I like to use the analogy all the time. If you know you got a boxing match, right, in 5 years, right, with a very good and skilled opponent, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to play video games the whole time, or are you going to train and get ready for the biggest fight of your life, which I look at as marriage? Because
So it makes
can
you
lose
worldly.
everything.
Makes you worldly.
Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
I think we don't disagree that that's true.
Yeah,
The Christian ethics pushback to this would
of
be,
course.
but wait, you want this is a requirement or something which is helpful to make you a high value man.
Yeah.
Well, this in turn would give this hoe value.
But I don't determine a guy's high valueness from having sex with a lot of girls. I think a man being deemed as high status or high value is from his effort and his merit that he develops on his own, and then the
Sure.
women are byproducts.
But he has experience now, and experience is going to help him be high value, right?
I wouldn't attribute him being, because there's guys that are high value that don't get girls. Like I wouldn't say like they're successful, they're smart, they're ambitious, etc. But they don't get girls. Maybe they don't go out enough. Maybe they don't care to.
Oh, right. But
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
more likely to get them if they want them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in a better position.
Yeah.
They're because it's a byproduct. But my thing is your value as a man is not attributed to the amount of girls that you have sex with. I just think it allows you to be a better test of character. You're better able to assess the character of women when you've dealt with them before, so that you don't get finessed out of the value that you created.
But wouldn't the entailment of that be that you're high value? Like the entailment of I have X amount of experience that helps me with my value. Like that's going to be a portion of that, and so kind of the rebuttal that we would have is we would say, okay, maybe
I
that's,
just don't attribute like a man's sexual experience to him being high value. I think it helps him with assessing
A partner.
a partner. But I don't. But him being high value is completely independent of having sex with a lot of girls. I think the women are a byproduct of his success.
Okay, so
That's my stance on
he is successful.
Yeah.
It's easier for him to get these chicks.
Yes.
Right.
And I think if he's going to go ahead and partake in women, he should have some experience, is what I think.
Gotcha.
Especially when he's higher value and he has a lot to lose. But I'm not going to sit. If I take two guys, right? One guy is making, one guy is wildly successful, etc., and another guy's wildly successful. One has a partner count of 1,000, the other one has a partner count of 0. To me, they're still both high value. Just one chose to use his value to attract way more women than the other.
But would you make it a prescription then? Would you tell men you should do this? It's good for you to do this.
I think if you're going to go and be marriage-minded and try to find a girl to take seriously, you should have some experience.
Then that has to add to the value.
I don't think so, man.
I don't see
you're high
how.
value.
If you're saying
high
if we
value,
want this thing,
Yeah.
and this thing is to get married
Yeah.
to a high value woman, right? To somebody who you consider to be virtuous and good and this type of thing, right? If you're saying that having sex with a multitude of partners is then going to up your chances of being able to do this thing, to accomplish this thing, then I don't see how it's not attributing to the value.
I completely. A man's value in him having sex, they're independent to me.
Okay.
I look at, like, you can be a virgin as a guy and still be a high value dude.
Yep.
Is how I look at it. I think the women are just a byproduct of your value.
But it is a prescription that you would make?
If your prescription as far as the 50 girls.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can be high value and not take that prescription.
Right,
is my
but
point.
you must see some value then in prescribing it.
More, and the value is from protecting your value. Does that make sense? So, like,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
The value is you
but that's why I
protecting your
think if you're
value, but
pers-
you don't need the women for that value.
Right, but I think that here's the entailment.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're prescribing, have sex with 50 women, okay, this is your prescription and the prescription has value, then whatever the hoes are that they're sleeping with, that's an entailment. So the hoe has to have value.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could call them like pawns.
I mean, they would be necessary for you to sleep with 50 women, right?
No, because not necessarily, because what ends up happening, because a lot of the girls, let's be honest, they'll be bimbos, stupid chicks, idiots, morons, lower status women.
But
maybe.
necessary for you to sleep with so that you can, right?
I mean,
so that
if you can
follow
get
that
by,
prescription.
if you can get by, right, with less, sure. But I think a decent barometer is 50 in today's day and age, because it will put you in a position where you'll experience a multitude of different girls with different personality types, different behaviors, different red flags, different green flags, etc. So you'll have a general rubric of, like, okay, these girls that go to the club all the time probably aren't good. I've dealt with like 3 of them now. Okay, these girls that go to that are from a sorority and maybe not so good. So, like, you kind of have an idea of, like, all right, this is, you get a generality of things.
Well, so to like the olive branch,
Yeah.
the meeting you halfway. I would not say for a second that the more sexual experience you have and the more worldly you are, that you're not going to have experience in dealing with worldly women. There's no doubt. Or women who aren't worldly.
Yeah.
You're still going to have experience in both. All I'm saying is that I think it's a logical entailment to say, I'm going to prescribe that you go sleep with, let's just say it's 20, right? It doesn't even have to be 50,
Okay.
15, 10, 5. It doesn't matter. You and I both know the types of women those guys are going to be sleeping with are going to be easy women, and they're going to be low-value women. They're basically going to be hoes. So if that's the case, that the hoes are who they're going to be sleeping with, then we have now entailed that hoes have to have value, or else you couldn't sleep with them.
I think it's kind of
I mean, I think all women have inherent value, though, even hoes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. You're saying they're valuable.
Because, like, all females have some type of value because they're women. But as far as, like, attributing that value to yourself and taking her serious, I think that's a different thing. So you got to figure out which ones are, worth a relationship and which ones aren't. And I think the way to do that is through, obviously,
Now,
experiencing
from
them.
our view, from the Christian ethicist view,
Sure.
they have no value. They only have human value.
Okay.
But they do not have, I would consider them at the lowest end of the...
if they're not virgins, like, what
of the
constitutes-
value hierarchy. Women who are very promiscuous and
Okay.
they see sex as a tool or as a utility or as a manipulation device or things like this, instantly the Christian ethicist is going to look at this and say, this is completely sinful, needs to stop, you're totally valueless,
Yeah, fair.
right? your humanity is still very valuable. You
Of
as
course.
a person still very valuable. Your salvation is really important to us.
Yeah.
But this type of sinful behavior, from our perspective, is completely degrading to society, and we need to stop it by almost any means necessary. Because what ends up happening, it's like an enclosed system. What ends up happening, from my perspective, is that degeneracy leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy.
Okay.
And there never seems to be a pull back. It's always a push forward. I mean, we're talking about shit now. You guys couldn't even imagine what we're talking about now with like transferees and all this different stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You couldn't have even
Is that
fathomed
what you
that.
call it? That's a new one.
Could you have even fathomed that we would be talking about child genital mutilation? I mean, who would ever have envisioned that this would be the world we live in?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if you back it up, if you look at kind of the slippery slope argument, quote unquote, this started with an LGBTQ push for equality, and once they have it, you have nothing else to complain about. You have to move the goalpost to the next victim group.
Yeah,
Then you
yeah.
have to move the goalpost to the next victim group.
Yeah.
And it becomes more and more and more absurd. And that's why you'll see the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way by necessity.
If I may, we're not arguing on I want to say religious standpoint. It's more of a logical standpoint.
Sure. Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Let's be honest here. You yourself, if you weren't versed in women, you can choose for yourself the wife you have today, right?
Yeah, that's
Your girl.
true.
So on some level, we do need to have women as, I won't say pawns, 'cause I said pawns earlier, that's kind of wrong. I would say an experience booster to understand what I really want in my life or what I actually need. So I think on some level, you still need to have that like experience as a man. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your the
view.
Christian viewpoint, and I think all religions pretty much have, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they're all pretty much, hey, like sexual degeneracy. It's not in our best interest here from a religious standpoint, which I completely understand. That's why I'm when I dispense this advice, it's more from a it's a strategic standpoint of, okay, if you're not a religious guy, etc., right? Most women are not religious, right? They're just not, unfortunately. Most people are secular in today's day and age. So I look at it like, okay,
Even the religious.
Huh?
Even the religious are more secular.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. Exactly. So like, so my thing, I look at it like, okay, though religion is great, and I think it's a great framework for people to operate in, unfortunately, we don't have those like training wheels anymore. So I think like for guys to really like move in this new sexual marketplace where, like you said before, these girls a lot of the times are fucking 304s. How's a guy that's been a virgin his whole life, super devout, has the rose-colored glasses on, doesn't know how women really move in today's day and age, how's he going to be able to tell if a girl really likes him or she's just selling him a dream, like, oh, I'm pure, etc.? Like, he won't know. Right now, of course, thank God there's content like this where we might be able to curb him having 50 bodies, and he might be able to only do 20, 30, 40. He might not need the full 50 because we're telling him, hey, this is what it is, right? They always say a smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from another person's mistakes.
Yeah.
Hell, on this show, we tell you guys our mistakes all the time. So people maybe are, with all this information, they're able to curb it, right, and learn from an earlier standpoint. But a lot of guys, what I've noticed is, a lot of guys are stupid. Let's just keep it 1,000. They got to fucking burn their hand on the kitchen stove to figure out that it's actually hot. And that's why the information is usual. It's like for the general masses. Are there smart guys out there that will figure this shit out with less? Of course. But I think for most guys, especially as hard-headed guys, with 50 chicks under your belt, man, you should at least be able to figure out the girls that are worth a relationship versus the ones aren't. And then most importantly, the girls that are trying to sell you a dream of, oh, I'm pure, etc., and you find out that they're at 304.
I have a question, Andrew. How would you solve this issue?
Solve the
Issue
problem
of men finding
Oh man, this
valuable
is
wives.
Yeah.
this
Let's hear
is
your,
this is pretty complex. Okay,
Yeah.
so
our adaptation is kind of like for today's day and age, if you're not
Yeah.
like a religious guy, but what's your
so backing it off, not gonna let you guys get away totally with this, so I'm bringing it back.
Okay, sure.
It's not a diversion, but I'm bringing it back. Okay,
Sure.
So from a secular perspective, it can't be fixed. From a secular perspective, it
Okay.
can't be fixed.
Sure.
Secularists have no moral foundation at all. Like it or not, they don't. And it really can't be fixed. However, what I can point to is this. Let's assume for a second hypergamy is real, right? I assume that it is.
Okay.
I think
agree.
generally speaking, there's enough evidence that we can look at and we can say hypergamy is at least it's real enough.
Yeah.
Right? It's real enough.
Agreed.
It used to be under control. It used to be under control.
Yeah. Religion used to put it under
Like
control.
it or not,
Yeah.
we had that shit under control
Yeah.
and under lock and key.
Religion,
and that-
shame, families, fathers,
Yep.
all these things used to combat it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Secularism destroyed all that.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
when I say to people, and I understand the argument, we're never going back to that, but we are. We are going to go back to that, and I'm going to explain how. It's not going to be in our generation, but if you look at the birth rates, the global birth rates, they're in massive, rapid decline, and it's a problem most people have no idea about yet, how bad the population collapse is really going to be.
It's very bad, especially the Western countries.
But you know these stats. What age are women on average now getting married?
Into their late 20s, 30s now.
30 is the
Yeah.
average age, right?
Yeah.
I think it's 31 is the average age last time I looked. How many kids are you going to have as a 31-year-old woman?
Very few.
Very few.
Yeah.
Well, these women are becoming quicker and quicker genetic dead ends, but so are secularists in general. If you look at the religious reproduce far and away more than secularists reproduce. Cross-generationally, this is going to become worse and worse and worse. As people leave the Protestant churches, they're moving towards Catholicism, Orthodoxy, more traditional churches. There's big pushes in those churches to have families and to have children and to reproduce. You know, you know the old adage for Catholics, right? You know, if you don't have 10 kids, you have no kids, right? Reproduction is the future.
Yeah.
The religious reproduce, and secularists are not reproducing. They're
That's why London has been taken over by Muslims.
That's
now.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. And if you look at, I'll only touch on this very briefly, but even if you look at Israel, Israel is the only westernized nation that has a reproduction rate that is stable. It's actually over what is necessary because they took one look at it and went, okay, we got to get these numbers up. How are we going to do that? So they implemented an in vitro fertilization program for free for the entire nation.
Really?
Yeah, for the whole nation. An in
Okay.
vitro fertilization. You can go have it done 12 times and they'll pay for everything.
Interesting.
In order to keep those numbers up.
Okay.
Because they look around, they're like, we're surrounded by,
Yeah,
by everybody,
for that-
right?
yeah, it makes
We
sense why
better-
they would do it.
We better have a future army, right? We better have a future army.
yeah.
But the West has not rang the alarm bells just yet. They're just now talking about it in Congress.
Yeah.
But then what's another side effect of that? Your domestic population is not reproducing. How do you keep the number at 330 million? There's only one way to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be with
Immigration.
immigration coming in.
Yeah.
And, well, that creates instability all on its own.
A lot of
And then what
problems.
happens if you start pulling in immigrants from other nations and they have a reproduction crisis,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at all the downsides of a coming population collapse, you can see that religion's going to make a pretty heavy comeback. And
Think
you
so?
see it
Okay.
already being fought about now. Secular ethics can't offer people anything. It can offer them only hedonism. But ultimately, it can't give people purpose. It just says go find your own purpose. But what the hell does that
Yeah, I
mean?
believe that religion is going to have a comeback, and
How
all
does that help
these
people to tell them, well, just go find your own purpose? Like, well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for
feminists.
purpose, right? That's why I came to
Oh,
church
I want to
for,
have
to
a,
find purpose.
I want to have a career first.
Secularists
and
can't
that.
provide that.
So
They're
I agree with you, Andrew. I think
they're
in
gonna
the future, things will
go
change.
the way of the
However, right
dinosaur,
now,
Mm-hmm.
what do you do?
and
Well,
the
so
next
right now,
generation
you
of
should
women is
try.
gonna
I mean, this is me
see
again.
that
If I look at
they
those
hit the
trans
wall,
Muslims were never able to
and they don't want to
reproduce
go down
anymore.
that route anymore.
Okay,
So
some 60-70%.
marriage
they were never able
and
to
families
reproduce.
is
Minority.
gonna
That's why we have double
have
female
a.
ancestors.
There's gonna be a
male
reset
ancestors,
coming back.
right? I would still say that the best thing that you can do is to try to live an integrity-filled life, and that at the end of that life, regardless of how it went, right? Maybe you didn't get that hedonistic pleasure that you wanted, but neither did your ancestors. They didn't get that either. And I think hypergamy has always been this thing, this issue, and that women have been this way. We have Helen of Troy to look at. We have Samson and Delilah to look at. We know that this is the nature of women.
Yeah.
But we also know that most men were never able to reproduce,
Yeah.
ever. And most of the women that we have right now, if we have men going out and turning out hoes, if we have them going out and turning out hoes, doesn't that hurt the future men? You know what I mean? Who want to get, lay down and marry these women? If we're going out and turning them out, that seems like it's counterproductive to me.
I see your perspective.
I could also argue though they've already been turned out. like no, they're already there. They already made.
True.
Yeah, well, I mean, there had to be a ground
Yeah,
zero. There was a ground zero penis somewhere.
Remember, you mentioned feminism
Yeah.
and the culture itself, the music.
Yeah.
They did all the work for them.
Yeah.
We just come in and hey.
Well, I mean, he said it earlier. Like, if you're going to continue to stay secular, it's never. Which
Never.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's never, and that's why because I'm looking at it like, okay, because I see, and I want to actually ask you how you think it'll go back to being a religious state. But let's assume that it's not, right? Let's assume that people are going to continue to live free and woo, through secularism, etc., I'm looking at it like, okay, there are guys out there that want a family. There are guys out there that want to one day, because I think the nuclear family is the backbone of any society, any thriving society. As a matter of fact, the reason why we're so fucked up now is because we don't have a lot of nuclear families anymore, right? When I was in UAE, for example, I saw strollers everywhere, families together, etc. I don't see that here. Hell, even in Miami, I see people walking dogs more than walking with kids.
Yeah.
So,
the little dogs too,
the little ones too, the
annoying
weird
dogs.
ones.
Yeah.
So I say all this to say I say all that to say this. For the guys out there that do want a family one day, etc., and I don't want them to get destroyed by the divorce machine, right? I'm like, okay, you want a family, you want a wife. This is very risky in 2024 with the way women are programmed,
Yeah.
right? So I think one way to deal with it is to have experience with women so you can at least rule out the bad ones. I'm not telling you to find a perfect girl, but at least be able to rule out the bad ones so that you can have a family with a chick and she won't destroy your life.
But what if
That's the
there's-
only reason.
What if there's a better way in marriage, though?
Sure, go ahead.
What about covenant marriage?
Okay.
What about using covenant marriage and the ecclesiastical authority of the church to govern the marriage, where you actually have communities? One of the big things that's missing from.
Can you explain that to me? Because
Yeah.
I'm not Christian, so.
From your Islam has their own form of ecclesiastical authority. They wouldn't call it that, okay? But in Muslim nations, they have Sharia law. Sharia courts will actually adjudicate marriages. They'll adjudicate all sorts of things from the religious authority.
Yeah.
Christians have always had this. We've always had an ecclesiastical authority. The Catholic Church has it. The Orthodox Church has it. The ecclesiastical authority is a way to govern your life and govern your marriage. Exit the state, and you can
okay.
enter into a covenant marriage. And they do not just let you go. They do not just release you from your vow. And if you have community pressure, that's the social shame you're talking about.
Yeah.
What's going on right now?
I'm a fan of marriage without the state involved. I've talked about this.
And you should be.
Yeah.
Because what's
I've talked
happened
about this,
instead is we have traded a good ecclesiastical foundation with community for this crazy-ass contract where it's easier to break than a cell phone contract.
Yeah.
And women have all the incentive in the world to
do it.
break it.
Yeah.
Why in the world would we ever endorse, from a Christian perspective, to get involved in a secular marriage? That's the worst idea on planet Earth. We should be recommending covenant marriages through the church, governed through the church and those communities, your own community.
Gotcha.
That's where you get the social shame. That's where you get the pressure.
Yeah.
That's where, because right now, if you go and you involve yourself in a secular marriage, you go to the courthouse, you get married tomorrow.
Yeah.
Where's the community?
Yeah.
Where's the support structure? Maybe your family, maybe not.
TikTok.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you and her against the world. That's insane.
It is.
You know what I mean? You have children, you have financial woes. You got to have a community.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's a reason why the phrase "it takes a village to raise a child." That's why. Because, and shame is a very powerful thing. And I agree with you because we've talked about this. If you're going to get married, we always tell guys, if you're going to get married, do it. Don't make sure the state's not involved, right? Go. If you're a Muslim, go ahead and just get married at the mosque
Or by the church.
or by the church. I wasn't aware. What's it called? Ecclesiastic.
Yeah.
Basically by the church, basically.
Yeah. the
Okay.
church.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay. So.
Yeah.
And if you have marital problems, you go to the church.
Yeah, and I think that's a fantastic way to get around it. You know what I mean?
And you should.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the most successful marriages in the United States, you want to know what some of the most successful ones are? Mormon marriages.
For sure.
Why?
Yeah.
The Mormons have their
Community.
own church authority and community
Yeah,
that applies significant social pressure. They're like, no, you don't get to just do your husband like this. You don't get to just do these types. Oftentimes, they don't even involve the state at all.
Yeah.
State's not even, you get married within the community in the
Yeah.
eyes of God, because that's what marriage is. Marriage has nothing to do with a state contract.
Yeah.
The state should only be involved in things which are good for the entirety of the nation. Marriage is now not good, and that's terrible. That's an awful position to be in, to have the state promoting something as toxic as marriage through the state now is. It's a raw deal for men. It's a bad deal even for women, ultimately, because they have the incentive to do it, and then they seem to regret it. They take years of regretting this, and it's like, if we're going to change this, fine. But let's actually move towards that, towards actually changing these laws, actually moving against the laws. And where the TradCons get it wrong is they refuse to engage with the Red Pillars, saying, listen, we're getting destroyed. Men are just getting destroyed out here. They're getting wrecked everywhere, right? And you hear their stories over and over again. And I see these guys in the Daily Wire, they're like, well, you could get lucky. you might get lucky.
One of these days.
I got lucky. Look at me. I got lucky.
Yeah.
Look at him. He got lucky too.
Yeah.
Right? That's stupid advice. Why would you ever give advice like that? Instead of looking at the problem objectively and saying, look, there's really nothing inside of our religious purview that says that we shouldn't be pushing back against state authority for marriage, since we consider it to be in the eyes of God, not in the eyes of the state. That's what we should be pushing for. That's what the traditional conservative side is supposed to be pushing for. Religious institutional marriage, forget the state. Totally worthless.
Well, so if we're doing that, then I look at it like, okay, well, let's say you make a bad mistake. Let's say you don't have the 50 body count. You got 5, right? Or maybe you're a virgin. You get married to a chick. You didn't know that she was a 304 before. And then she goes ahead and, breaks up with you and, breaks your heart and shit like that. Well, at least you can get out of it now where you don't owe a bunch of money
That's right.
to her or whatever it may be. That's one way. But, again.
It's also when you have a church backing you, right? That's a heavy force. People forget the institutional power and community power churches
Of
have.
course, of
And
course.
community shame is brutal.
Yeah.
It is brutal. And you have some churches, they have, serious institutions. It's the last institutional authority of the right, and we don't use it for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, my thing is, because when I give my advice, I'm like, all right, I'm assuming they're not Christian, they're not devout, they're going to get with a chick that isn't Christian, not devout, they're secular, etc. So I'm like, okay, that's how most young people identify nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? We don't live in a Christian society anymore, unfortunately, right?
We do not.
We don't. So I'm looking at it like, okay, this is how you deal with the new normal. Is it optimal? Should you be running out there and trying to fuck 50 girls in general? Well, no, because well, yes and no, because chasing after girls, I've always said this, going after women inevitably puts you in a situation where you're not fucking productive. You're fucking texting girls all the time. You're going out on dates. You're going to nightclubs. You're
spending
maybe
money and
consuming alcohol. You're spending money.
resources,
You're spending resources. Like, the pursuit of women in itself is extremely labor intensive. So, yeah, it's annoying. But like, I look at it like, I'd rather you do this work up front, know how women are, then you do all this work, make yourself high value, then you have the time finally to go ahead and date, and then you go ahead and you date, you find a girl, she's really a whore, but she sells you a dream, you go ahead, you get married to this girl, and then bam, next thing you know, state's taking half your money. But with what you said, okay, we're getting married only through the church or through a mosque or whatever, and you are not incentivized to leave me.
Right.
Well, I could meet in the middle ground there, because the guy isn't going to be destroyed. But knowing that most guys are going to do what? Their dumb ass going to go to the church. Sure, I'll go ahead and sign here so you can have half the money because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Because that's what most fucking guys are going to do, right?
It depends on what we're pushing them towards.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
if they're going to do that, right, and go through what? Because let's be honest, a lot of modern day women, they won't accept getting married just by the church or just by a mosque. They want the security that comes with.
But wouldn't that be a red flag?
state-sanctioned manner. That's true.
But wouldn't that be the red
that would
flag
be a
where you're
huge red
like,
flag.
wait, you won't get married to the church? I thought you loved me.
Yeah. You're right. But dude, see, the thing is that we're having a higher IQ conversation here at the table because we're able to understand this.
Yeah.
Most guys are fucking idiots, man. Let's keep it 1,000. They're fucking idiots. They're like, pussy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll sign the contract. Like, it's crazy the things that guys will do for women. It's fucking scary, man. Like, when I do some of these consultations with these guys and they say what they've done for women, etc., and looking back to, like, I'm an idiot, 2020 hindsight now, etc., but when you're in love with a girl or you don't know better or whatever, like, these guys really put themselves in very dangerous situations with these women. So I'm like, fuck, like, if you guys are going to do this and sign your life away and go to a courthouse and marry this chick that you know has all these red flags, like, goddamn, at least have some experience, man, before you go into the slaughterhouse. So that's how I look at it. But I agree with you, man. If we can go back where guys can go ahead and get married through the church or the mosque and there's no incentive for the woman to leave them, yeah, fuck yeah.
See,
My only other pushback then really
Sure.
is when I think, because you and I both know, probably all of us at the table know, like, high value man is kind of a nebulous term. Don't know exactly what that means, but I think
Very nebulous.
I think heuristically we know.
Yeah,
right.
it's very nebulous.
So we can be like, a guy purports himself well, has enough money to take care of himself, handles his responsibilities, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think we kind of know it when we see it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's fair. But when I think of high value too, I institute things like virtue. I think of virtues. I think of integrity, virtue ethics. Those are the things that I would consider to be high value as well. Some stoicism thrown in there, maybe.
Okay. All right.
The only drawback, even for secularists, because you can get secularists to move towards virtue ethics. They may reject God, they may reject religion, but they will act as though religion is real if you give them some foundation like virtue ethics. And so the only drawback I really see, even from the secular side of telling them, hey, this will make you worldly, that's going to hurt their virtue. It's going to ultimately hurt their virtue to basically kind of man whore around, right? And that's something that later in life, reflectively, when they're 40 or 50, they might look back on and be like, hey, look, that I was not living a high integrity lifestyle.
Yeah. So when it comes to so your pushback is with because it lacks the virtue, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's no virtue in promiscuity for men or women. I think you would agree with that even as a secularist, that you said yourself, sleeping with a ton of women in and of itself is not a virtuous act. Maybe you think it's neutral, right? But it certainly has no virtue.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But for women, right, it has a really bad side effect that doesn't even have for men. And because of the gatekeepers of sex, there's even less virtue.
I agree.
But it takes two to tangle. And so anybody who's going to have sex with one of these women, they're going to be taking away from the virtue of themselves and the woman. And for me, when I look at men of status, real men of status, who maintain their virginity, like I met a gentleman named Mason when I was on whatever. Dude, square-jawed, real strong guy. He maintained his virginity. He didn't seem like he was unaware of female nature to me, but I can understand that probably plenty are, right?
Yeah.
But he seemed like a really virtuous guy. You know what I mean? And there is some kind of integrity to that when you meet a man who has tons of virtue, you'll follow him off a building, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that keeping virtue intact is another thing which in Western society we should be pushing towards.
Understandable.
Even from a secular framework, that seems to be more optimal. You know what I mean?
Understandable. Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously ideal. I just think with the way things are, for a guy to be able to find that virtuous woman, he's got to deal with some women that aren't virtuous. And the only way he's going to do that is through experience. I'm looking at it more from like a preventative standpoint, where it's like,
well, it's pragmatic.
Yeah,
right?
for in today's day and age, right? If women weren't the way they are now, I would tell guys, stay a virgin.
Yeah.
Like, fucking wait, man. Like, exercise that discipline. But nowadays, with just the way women are, it's like you almost get punished for being that nice guy and being extremely virtuous and nice to these girls, because they don't reward that anymore. Like, chivalry is dead, and I genuinely think modern day women killed it. So it's like, though I think that's optimal and the best way to go about it, I just don't think it's practical or pragmatic in today's day and age, is my only issue.
Well, I mean, the problem is there's a lot of truth in what you say.
Yeah.
And so, I'm a firm believer in accepting what is objective reality. It is objective reality that promiscuity inside of Western nations is now out of control, to the point where reining it back in seems like almost a fool's errand. But I also think that if we can provide any pushback to move it the right direction, we should. Yeah. I mean, and now I'm actually like, brainstorming here how we would do that. The only way we would do it is, you would have to make a religious state to do it, because quite frankly, at least give a religious option, right? And let the religious govern it as synergy. So the nations of old had a synergistic relationship.
Yeah.
It was not that the state was run by the church, just that the state worked with the church.
Yeah.
Why should the state govern marriage?
So you're not a fan of separation of church and state then?
Well, not a separation. I think, though, that we should not necessarily live in a state which is controlled by the church, but has a synergistic relationship.
Okay.
Your population needs to have some moral foundation, right? You can't have people who, even patriotism itself used to be a big deal in the United States, right?
Yeah.
That was a unifying force. So there's all kinds of propaganda towards patriotism, right? It was everywhere.
Yeah.
There was American flags, and, the patriotic messaging was everywhere. And it's a subtle form of brainwashing, which unifies people through an ideology.
Yeah.
Religion does the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can push any kind of synergy with the church, you don't have to make the...
But how would we get the young people to do that? Because my thing is, so I see your perspective and I see your vision. I agree with you that religion absolutely curbs a lot of this bullshit. The problem is, how are you going to get the young people to accept it? Like, how are you going to get the young people to
the same way that the leftists did it?
Okay.
Through moving through institutions as quickly as we possibly can and adjusting our propaganda at the national level. The propaganda I want to see at the national level sounds like this. Get married young. Have 1 million children because we're going to tax exempt you from life. For life. You'll be tax exempt for life. 3 kids, right? We're going to make it really hard for you to get a divorce because the state's getting out of it. You can only get married through your church. The state's not even going to offer a marriage certificate. We don't need to anymore because our job is to push towards the health and welfare of the United States. And this is no longer healthy for the United States to have marriage through the state. It has become so bad that people who enter it, your likelihood of exiting clean is almost 0%, right?
Yeah.
So
impossible.
You can do the same thing. You can have national rhetoric, national brainwashing campaigns, right? Just the other direction. Now, brainwashing has a negative connotation.
So how are you
going to
override? And this is just like I genuinely want to get your opinion on this. How do we override the Cardi B's, the Sexy Reds, the ridiculous music, the ridiculous social media addiction that a lot of young people have, the TikTok twerking, the OnlyFans culture that we have, the sex work? I would argue nowadays like young women are more inspired by sex workers than anything else, right? Like if you ask a young attractive girl, who's your role model? And we've done it on the podcast a bunch of times. Who do they say? Kim K.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Like
I've
that's what they aspire to be like
and
now.
it's like sickening to listen to.
So it's like how are we going to override?
Here's how you do it.
All the degenerate propaganda has been put out there.
Muslims are fantastic at this.
Yeah.
And Christians are not. Muslims engage. What I've noticed about Muslims is they engage. They engage in ideology, man. They engage in political prescriptions, and they're in your face about it. Christians have become soft and too nice. We have adopted Christianity to be a be nice religion, and it never was a be nice religion.
It's passive.
It's supposed to be a get in your face religion. It's supposed to be a no, you're wrong. You fucking skank, you're wrong, and you're a liar, and you're destroying the very fabric of society. But we don't see that engagement from Christians anymore because it's been so subverted by women saying, no, be nice.
Yeah.
What I would like to see is instead of theological debates going on all over the place between Christian versus Christian, and I'd like to see more Christians actually move into the political space like I have. You even see guys like Fuentes did this. They move into the political space and they fight that way. They push back using Christianity ideologically through politics. And that's become very popular. Suddenly it starts picking up steam. You start hearing about things like Christian nationalism. You start hearing about Christian hierarchies and all these different ideas, not because we're having obscure theological debates, but because we're getting in your face politically. We're saying, no, Christians aren't passive. No, Christians aren't sissies. No, Christians aren't supposed to just sit there while secularists rule us. That is a huge misinterpretation that people have, that secularists are somehow better off having power than the religious. That's insane. Secularists are not good at wielding power. They have no moral grounding from which to wield it. So if we really want to see change, instead of trying to get into Christian apologetics in order to have theological debates and theological discussions, get into Christian politics and go get in their face. And that, I think, will have more of a result in society than people can imagine. Is it going to happen overnight? No. Is it going to be cross-generational? Yeah. But I'd rather see people push that direction.
Okay. And you had mentioned earlier that you don't foresee this happening like in our generation. Or when do you foresee this like happening? Because
it took the left about 3 generations to completely infiltrate all of our institutions. It's going to take us about 3 generations to infiltrate them ourselves. We have to get involved again in culture. We have to be confrontational, and we have
we're talking 60 to 100 years then.
Probably 60 years.
Yeah.
But that's a blink of the eye.
Yeah.
It's a blink of the eye. You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe we can't save them all, right? But we can at least start the process. And it's like, I would rather start the process and start moving that direction and be realistic with the outcome, right? The most beautiful churches in the world took 300, 400, 500 years, 1,000 years to build. They were cross-generational projects.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not saying that we can save men right now. That would be absurd. What I am saying, though, is that men can save themselves by working towards that goal.
Yeah, religion's always been a very good way to increase productivity. Obviously, keep your head on straight, avoid a bunch of stupid shit. Luckily, if you got discipline, you can avoid it. Avoid being an alcoholic or doing drugs and doing all this stupid shit. But yeah, I mean, religion absolutely helps a lot of people when it comes to that. It's just that I look at it like, damn, are people gonna because I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. Personally, I think it's gonna continue to get even. Yep. I think women are gonna continue to be even. I think it's gonna be like right now. It's cool to be a sex worker as a chick. Like you got young people nowadays, right? Boys and girls saying, "I want to be an influencer." Right? For the girls, I want to be an influencer that's sexualizing myself. For the guys, they want to be a moronic idiot that's on Twitch running around doing stupid shit. So it's like. It's the youth is like just brainwashed, and then you compound that with the music, with TikTok, with with the pornography, the ubiquitousness of ubiquity of pornography.
Everywhere.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So it's like I look at it like, fuck, like, okay, how's the guy going to navigate this nowadays? Like, religion ain't going to save you from these hoes right now. Maybe in, like you said, in 2 to 3 generations.
But
which, yeah,
you know what
hopefully.
saves men though? A mission.
Absolutely, I agree.
What saves men is a mission.
Yeah.
And if you give men a direction and they know that they're collectively working towards that mission, man, it's incredible how much men can achieve even with a small collective and a mission and an ideology.
I agree.
And that's why I'm like, push that. Well, for me, you know what I mean? I'm going to push that. I'm going to push that direction. And it's been so successful in days past. And we've just forgotten we have our own institution too, the church. We have our own institutional power. And we can push back. But we have to get in their face. We have to stop pretending that Christianity is a be nice.
Yeah, I was going
hold
to say,
hands.
so what is your strategy? Because, like, you got gay pastors now, you got female
You
pastors.
get in their face.
You got all
go
this
confront
stuff.
them.
Like,
you ask these guys, just like what happened with TPUSA when they asked them the question of all questions. You know, how is it that your LGBTQ push in conservatism is helping us win the culture war? And they had no answer to it, right? By the way, stroke of political genius that happened, okay? They got in their face. They said, no, this is not part of Christian ethics. This is not part of our grounding foundation. What are we trying to conserve here? And that type of thing, I think, has more of a value to general society than any other single thing men could be doing.
yeah, I mean,
Hold on. I have
go
a
ahead.
question for you, bro.
Sure.
Because I've been listening this whole time.
Yeah.
I believe you're on the right track here, 100%. But I also come from a Christian background.
Yeah.
I believe what you're saying is true, 100%. Only the issue here is that, like, the church itself is not at fault. I think the church itself is wayward. It's gone all the way left. Now, granted, how do you fix the issue at hand? It starts with the church. But the Pope himself, other pastors that are funded by the government themselves, are all to the left. How do you fix that?
I'll explain. You are correct, especially in Catholicism, this is true. But you know what's interesting about the Catholic Church, and I'm an Orthodox myself, not Catholic. But what's interesting is you have, for the first time in an organization that I've seen, which is involved in politics, you have top-down instead of bottom-up corruption. Usually it's corruption from the bottom, which goes up to the top, and then the top stays corrupt, right? In this case, a lot of Catholics are base, man. I mean, they're pretty awesome. They're the grounding foundation of Catholicism. They're the money givers. They're the tithers.
Yeah.
They're the people who are making the Catholic Church possible to begin with. And it's like, it's really easy to go to those people and say, stop tithing. Stop tithing if they're going to go towards this, this type of agenda. Stop feeding the money to them. That's how you get at Catholicism, because the bottom's not corrupt. The top is corrupt. You can go for the clergy, and the clergy can vote with their wallet. And man, if you starve an institution of money, what happens, right? That's what they do to creators, right? They don't like what you say, they starve you of money, and that shuts you up. And it's the same thing with any organization. It's the same thing within Orthodoxy. It's the same thing within Protestantism. Cut off the money supply until they reform to what they're supposed to be. And it's like the Catholic Church, much harder, because the corruption does go up to the top, in my opinion. Okay, but still the grounding foundation of most Catholics, they're pretty awesome. Most of them are pretty awesome people. And it's like, I don't think it would take too much to begin to push them to say, stop tithing that way until, some of this stuff goes by the wayside.
Who are they going to follow? You or the Pope?
Well, they're going to follow the Pope for the most part, but some of them are so frustrated with what's going on with papal authority or papal authority that I don't think it would take much. Right? I'm not saying that one man's going to be able to push the whole tide. What I'm saying is that you can begin at least to do your own part to move people towards that. I'm not saying one guy's going to be able to do it. That's absurd. Though single people have been able to do things like this in the past, I think that everybody moving towards it in their own way, trying their hardest in their own way to move towards that, that's how you see things get done.
I like that. I would just say, though, tell me if you understand this phrase. Right will be wrong, wrong will be right in these times.
Right will be wrong and wrong will be right. Yeah. So, but that's all times.
But even more so now.
Well, more so than when. So if you look at history, if we're going to get into theology, right? everything that is to come to pass has already come to pass.
Yes.
Right? Could be way worse in 100 years, and it may have been way worse 200 years ago, right? Ultimately, I'm not going to look at it, though, and say, hey, we're in the end times right this second, so I'm just going to throw in the towel and throw my hat on the couch and I'm done. No, I'm going to still act within the ethical purview of which I've been given, and I'm going to, if Jesus comes tomorrow, right, and it was all for nothing, then it was all for something. So that's the way I see it.
I like it. Good man.
No, well, I mean, you did say it's a multi-generational thing, which
Yeah,
I think,
cross-generational,
it's gonna take a while. It's just that I think, like, with the way things are now, us being in a secular society, etc. And I know you disagree with me on the 50 body count, which is totally fine. I think that's important for you to be able to have a conversation with people that you disagree with.
Sure.
I think it's a viable strategy given the environment that we're in now, with the way women are, with the way the marriage institute is set up in the United States, with the state being involved, etc. And let's be honest, most guys are not going to get married through a religious counterpart that's going to protect them and not incentivize the woman, because most women nowadays are like, if I'm going to get married, I need a marriage certificate, I need all this stuff. I mean, hell, you can't even tell a girl nowadays that you want a prenup without issues, right? So it's like, I think with knowing that most guys are going to get married through the state, it's like, all right, you're going to go through this route, then you need to be prepared. Because I think it's the most important boxing match of your life. You need to train, because that girl's definitely been training when she was going through college and being at the 304 and smashing dudes and all this other stuff. So it's like, which goes back, I was going to ask you about this, actually. I wrote this down.
Sure.
You have a very strong you don't like egalitarianism,
No.
right, and feminism, etc. Which I agree with you. I think brings a lot of inherent problems, which is why we're even having this conversation right now with how should men move nowadays, right? Yeah. And I think obviously feminism is what's caused a lot of this. What's your? I guess I'll just turn it to you and you tell us what your issues are with it. And you just go off.
Sure. So feminism starts with a flawed assumption that egalitarianism is even possible. And that equity is even possible. It is not. It's actually illogical. Egalitarianism is illogical. Men and women have a very different ontology. The basis of what they are is different. Mm-hmm. But they also have another glaring problem, which is force. Men are always going to have a monopoly on force. Therefore, women's rights can only come from men. That's the only way it's actually possible, is through the enforcement arm. So when women say we want an egalitarian, voluntary society, they're actually relying on force of men in order to take care of those laws inside of that society for their egalitarianism. It's instantly unequal. That's why you can be drafted.
Yeah.
And they can't.
Exactly.
Because the monopoly on force to protect their pampered asses is done by men such as yourself and others who have the monopoly on force. So egalitarianism from the ground up is a flawed concept immediately. Feminism, right, has been taking the last 200 years to subvert this concept and say instead, no, we're interchangeable widgets. Women can do everything that men can do, except basically everything men can do. Their bone structure, their body, everything's completely different. Just having most women just working outside, right? Their actual physiology can't take it. They have trouble with heat regulation. They have trouble with all sorts of things. They actually can't do a lot of those jobs. Not all women. There's plenty of outliers who can, but not enough.
Yeah.
Whereas most men...
And I think that's the key right there.
That's right.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough can do it where we can sustain society.
But most men can.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's funny, is it's not outliers with men, it's most. And I'm talking most men, even big, fat, obese dudes, right? I see them working on road crews, and they're hauling shit, right?
Yep.
They are paving roads. They're still doing it.
Yep.
Okay? I have not, that the Helgas of the world, right? They're working in office spaces for a reason. They actually can't do it.
Yeah.
So all of the modernity that they enjoy is basically created by men. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason that they even have a leg to stand on for any egalitarian claims to begin with, is because we've built the society from which they make the claims. We built the microphones they're speaking into from which to make those claims, and then on top of that, protect their pampered asses at night while they're at home sleeping, and they go, but I'm just as good as it. It's ridiculous. Egalitarianism is actually logically, and any feminist hearing this who ever wants to debate on egalitarianism, I welcome it. Don't care how high profile you are. I'll go right into your studio, wherever you are, and completely eviscerate you on it. There is no such thing. It's a complete and total lie. There's a book you should read. My wife wrote it. It's called Occult Feminism. I brought a copy, actually. I brought for both of you. I'll bring them to you next show. But phenomenal. Traces all the roots of feminism right to its core. And, yeah, it's all based on these flawed presuppositions that men and women are interchangeable widgets, and 90% of the problems you see in society can be traced back to this idea.
You know, it's interesting. Because
So
I
that's
agree
my
100%
rant.
with
That's
all
my
of
rant.
that. I've said a bunch of that a bunch of times when talking to women. And you know, people get angry at me. I've taken a stance. I've said, I genuinely think a woman's vote should be 50% of a man's. And whoa, holy crap, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, it's because of all the things you just listed.
Yeah.
Men are the ones that are typically predominantly in the military, in the police force, etc. Like, we're the enforcers at the end of the day to give you and protect the rights that you talk about. So it's like, you know, and then the other thing too is that a lot of them aren't in like infrastructure jobs that keep the country going. I think you should only vote if you have skin in the game. In the military draft, they don't have to.
That's
go
how
to
it
the
used to
military
be.
Draft.
It used to be you had to have skin in the game. Now, you know, there's hundreds of ways to do this besides property ownership.
Yeah.
You can do single household voting.
Yeah.
Only married couples can vote. And so now you and your wife's vote, it's for the whole household, right? That's a really good way to curb that.
Yeah.
There's another way to curb that, too. You can do selective service voting. You give 6 years of your life to the state unpaid, and now you have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Right? That's skin in the game.
Yep.
You don't have to make it based around, you don't even have to
I've
take
said it
women
before.
out, because what'll
They have
happen...
to, they got to have skin in the game. Government employee, your military service, etc. I'm like, okay, then you can get a full vote.
Sure.
But if like you're just a chick on fucking OnlyFans, dude,
Right. No
right?
way.
Or you're like one of these chicks
Or
that's
you're
like
18?
Yeah.
Why
Like,
is an 8? So how about this for the age gap argument, right? Oh, the 40-year-olds taking advantage of this poor 19-year-old girl. Then why can she negate his 40-year-old vote? If he is that superior to her that he can just
Damn.
instantly manipulate her, tell me why it is that she can nullify his vote.
That's a good. Damn, that's actually really
That
good.
makes no sense and is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in my life, right? So you can mitigate it via household voting. Also, the trick is if you were to do like 6 years selective service where you weren't paid for it, but then you could vote, right? You'd have high status in your community. I very much doubt that most women would do that.
hell no.
Very much doubt
No,
it.
they wouldn't.
And so, yeah, there's ways to mitigate this. And
Would you say that the reason why we've had incompetent leaders for so long in the United States is because of them voting?
yeah, women vote always
Democrat.
for self-interest security.
Yeah.
Self-interest security. And they don't
Thank
care.
God someone said it, man.
It's
Fuck
it's
it, I'm-
it's
People think
insane.
I'm crazy when I say this shit.
No, women
How
are
dare you?
Democrats,
Loan
and
forgiveness,
Democrat
all this shit.
progressives are scumbags and they're evil. From my perspective, utilitarian Democrats, they're all utilitarians, by the way. They're all fundamentally hedonistically evil, and women push the Democrat vote like no other. And you know why? Because it's nice and socially acceptable.
Yeah.
I want to be accepted. I want everybody to accept that I am, part of the socially acceptable group. They don't ever want to be part of the non-socially acceptable group. They want to be part of the whole.
Yeah.
And so it's very unpopular. Right now, if right-wingers, if that was considered like the popular thing, the in-crowd thing, that was the thing everybody was doing, they'd all vote Republican. Okay, but it ain't, and they move towards the Democrat vote, and the reason is, man, they really offer up a lot of security for women
Yeah.
at the expense of men. But working class men, what are they all doing? They're all voting for Republicans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all voting to, hey, stop taking my money.
Yeah.
Hey, this sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to drive down the road that's actually paved
Yeah.
instead of pothole filled. You know,
Yeah.
with why don't we put 2 more lanes? Looks like this we could put 2 more lanes. You know what I mean? They vote with risk.
Yeah.
They don't mind taking some risk.
Yeah.
Women, no risk.
Yeah, yeah.
No
No,
risk.
I mean, when you look at it, like they're just. It's interesting how our biology even determines how we vote,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like, oh, more secure. There's secure. Oh, wait, you're gonna give us like loan forgiveness and handouts and stuff. Yeah, you know what? I'll vote this way, and. Yeah, man, they want the security, and a lot of the times Democrats sell them that security, even
Oh,
though they
man.
don't get it. They don't really get it, right? It's kind
They
of how
put it on a platter for them.
Yeah, Yeah, it's how they got the black vote too. How the Democrats got the black vote was by selling security too.
Bribery.
You know, so it's like it's a bunch of bullshit, man.
Yep.
That's their pocket minions, the black vote.
Yeah.
Well, what are they
facts.
doing right now? Think about this. Like, I'll give you a really good.
We'll read chats here in a bit, guys.
Yep.
Get them in now while you can, and we'll read them here.
I'll
in a
give you one
second.
of the most
Go ahead.
fantastic kind of arguments on this. If they ever say, "No, we don't have security," just look at abortion.
Yeah,
Just look
point.
at abortion.
Good point.
Women want the right to abort for security.
Agreed. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the only reason they want it, right? I don't want to be laid down with this little thing that's going to take 18 years of my life that I have to support and mother and blah 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 blah. What are Democrats pushing? We want a woman's right to choose. Women need to be able to choose. Women need to be able to abort. Women need to be able. But that's a security push, and that's all it is. And that is how it's being pushed.
Powerful.
If they take away your right to choose, what happens to your security? Why, you wouldn't just be able to have promiscuous sex with no consequences anymore, right? That's not security.
Yeah.
But that's a great example right this second that you can point to and say, look, other than for security, right, why would this be being pushed?
Yeah.
Because that's the way women see it.
You know, it's interesting because when I look at women that vote on the right, 9 out of 10 times it's either A, they're married,
They're married.
or B, they are aligning with what their father or their brother taught them. 9 out of 10 times when they do that. But when they're like super blue, it's like, okay, single mom or didn't have a father in the household. There's like no strong masculine presence a lot of the
College.
Well, and you know, a lot of times, and let's never take this out of the equation, they simply don't think about it at all.
times. That too.
They simply have
facts.
never
The
thought.
cool thing to do is vote for Biden.
Yeah,
right?
they've simply never
It's
even
cool.
bothered thinking about it. And when you put them to the question and you watch their entire ideology crumble from a single question, you go, how did you never think about that ever in your life? You went and destroyed my vote. You wrecked my vote. You wrecked my brother's vote, my father's vote. You know what I mean? That's what you guys never even thought about this.
They don't care.
Not for 1 second.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that there's got to be skin in the game. I think, you know, for women that obviously are in the military, civil service, in government, etc., they have some skin in the game. Absolutely, your vote should be the same. But let's be honest, man. The majority of these chicks, like, I don't think an OnlyFans chick's vote should be equal to a man's vote. Fuck no. Or a
Listen,
sex worker, any of these chicks.
you know how
Because
you
they don't have skin in the game. They don't have to go to the draft.
You know how you win them over?
What?
TikTok. Listen, if you don't vote for our side, it's going to be banned. They vote for it 100%. They want it. So they want it.
Well, women are highly susceptible to propaganda.
Yeah.
If we can put ourselves in positions to be dealing in that propaganda, we can be dealing in the positions to influence women. And I can
That's
give you
why
an example.
advertisers target them
Advertisers,
predominantly.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, 100%.
That was what I was going to say.
Predominantly target
If
them.
you can advertise towards women the alternative message, they'll go for it.
Look at Gillette. Like, I
That's
mean,
how they got them all smoking.
I always use this example, right? So it's like,
Yep.
the example I always use a lot of times just to show like how much they control the marketplace. Gillette did an ad, right, back in like 2018, 2019. This is years ago now, right? They're feeling the consequences of it now. But where they said toxic masculinity, right? And they just shit on men for like a couple minutes, right? Like men are shitty, blah, 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 whatever. And they did that, right, to target females. But think to yourself, wait, hold on. Men's razors, this is a company for men. Why the fuck are they going to the opposite gender? That's like the equivalent to like Victoria's Secret said like, stop being toxic bitches. And they just had a bunch of
Men.
you know, OF chicks. No, like OF chicks being 304s and finessing dudes and divorcing them and taking their money. Like, could you imagine outrage if like Victoria's Secret did that and like made like a men's empowerment type commercial and said, "You stupid whores need to do better."
There wouldn't be one. Yeah,
They'd be done.
yeah,
They'd be
done.
shit on. But Gillette does that. They have the gall to do that and they go after they shit on their target audience. But then in my head it hit me. Oh, why? Because when you're an advertiser, you need to market to women, even at the expense of your target audience.
Yeah.
If that doesn't prove that the propaganda machine is always going to push the females, I don't know what else proves. You're going to ostracize the
Look at what
people
happened with
buying your
Budweiser.
shit.
Look at what happened with Budweiser.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing. Men were not into that message at all.
Yeah.
Right? That was a very social justice style message with Mulvaney. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
That was a big L.
And it was a
Yeah.
huge L, right?
Huge L.
But who was coming out supporting it and calling you a bigot and evil?
Yeah.
Bunch of women.
Yeah.
I can't believe you, Myron. How could you?
Yeah.
How you're terrible about. You know what I mean? And it's like, what did you do?
Yeah, it's wild, and it's like the fact that advertisers are willing to take the risk and alienate the people that buy their shit to go ahead and appease females. it proves that we live in a gynocentric society, and the advertisers know this, and that's what you look at the Super Bowl commercials. Literally, we were just in Vegas. You look at the Super Bowl commercials; they were all targeted towards females. Man.
I mean, Patrick mentioned with companies ESG scores. So I get it is a losing battle for money, but at the same time, to keep relevant and stay in these circles, you got to play the game on their level.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. I mean, like in my head, who was at the Bud Light meeting? Like, you know what, man, that's a good idea. Let's go ahead and shit on the guys that drink this shit, right? Which are, let's be honest, there's gonna be guys like you, Andrew.
Well, it was
right?
a female.
Like,
it was that's what I used to
Bud
like
Light?
it. I used to like Bud Light.
right?
Yeah.
You know, like guys that drink Bud Light typically are American guys between 18 all the way up into the 50s that are like America, like all that stuff, like. And you're gonna go ahead and just say, "Let me put this fucking dude in here." Like,
Yeah, but who came up with it? A woman.
It was a woman. It was.
It was a woman.
It was.
She came up with the entire marketing strategy. And, there's no escaping that that's true, that it's all gynocentric based.
Yep.
Right? But,
I think Gillette's commercial was run by a female.
yeah,
too.
but look, I mean, one thing that was kind of nice was the Christian base of the nation, they boycotted Budweiser. They boycotted them.
All of them.
And it
yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait a second. We have some power here that we forgot we had.
Yeah.
And that was nice to see.
Yeah.
And it's like, that kind of pushback, I'd like to see more of it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been a bunch of. I just wish, like, because the problem is, I know, like, I mean, I said this earlier, but it's like the libs, man, they're just so much louder than the conservative people. Like, but the conservatives, like, it's a silent majority, though. Like, if you're on X, right, and you look at, like, someone posts some stupid woke bullshit, like the comments are like, you're a fucking idiot, stupid, blah, 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 etc. But it's like, where are these people in real life? Like, in real life, they're not the ones demonstrating and doing, well, they're doing peaceful protests. But what gets on the news? The fucking liberals going crazy in Minneapolis, right? Like, it's just that, like, they just have more cam time. They control the media, right? They're in the media more. It's just, yeah.
They have another advantage
they've infiltrated.
that
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
often not thought about. Mentally ill people are entertaining. Mentally ill people, they're super fun to watch. And progressives all over the internet who are highly mentally ill, right? They're fun to watch and laugh at and, make fun of and this kind of thing. Conservatives come on. We haven't had a good conservative voice like Rush Limbaugh, right? Come around, like, that kind of once in a generation voice who's super entertaining and informative in, the whole package deal.
Yeah.
It's harder because they have to go work, right? Being highly entertaining, as you know, it's a skill all in itself.
Yeah.
And most on our side, a lot of them don't have it because they're not emotionally unstable lunatics.
What's going to get more views?
That's
a
right.
feminist in red hair screaming like, ah!
Yep.
Or a guy eloquently explaining the difference between men and women
Yep.
biologically. Well, people are going to go ahead and look at the feminists go, ah! That's just, you're right.
I share them myself.
Yeah.
I share them. I'm not immune. I'm like, man, look at this crazy bitch. Look at this shit this chick is doing, right?
yeah.
And my buddy will send it back and go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then it goes viral.
Yeah.
But it is entertaining, and mentally ill people are entertaining, and the left is filled to the brim with them. I mean, it's just overloaded.
They brag about their mental illness.
They love it. I've seen my psychiatrist and psychologist 8 times this week. You know what I mean? They love it. They're
Remember
all
when it
on
used to
something.
be
It's crazy.
Remember when, like, maybe I'm showing my age with this one, like, but remember, like, it used to be like negative to go see a shrink.
Yeah.
Do they even call them shrinks anymore? Like it used to be like, wait, you went to go see a psychiatrist? You went to go see a therapist? What the fuck is wrong with you, pussy? Like
Well,
it
now
used
they're
to-
all bragging about their degrees. I have a degree in sociology. They all, by the way, have a degree in sociology.
Yeah.
Everyone, I haven't met one yet that doesn't have a degree in sociology.
Yeah.
And they love it. They think it's great because they think it's a form of manipulation. They think that they're going to school to learn how to manipulate people and their emotions and their machinations better. That's why they do it. That's why that's appealing to women to move towards sociological fields. That's why you see them move towards it because it's a subtle form of manipulation.
It's true, Jordan Peterson's
I mean, you got pastors
his
sending
title.
people that are married to like a psychiatrist. That's crazy.
That is
Pastors.
crazy.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, but some of those pastors are also letting 2 men get married in their church.
That is
which
true.
That to
That is
me,
wild, too.
Yeah.
That to me is like, what? What is
That is
this?
crazy.
It's sad, bro.
What is this?
That is wild. No, I mean, it's really an interesting time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's like we're old enough to remember
I shouldn't exist right now. I should be in a factory. You know what I mean? It's like the fact that there's so many more coming.
Yeah.
Right? They're just tired of it, dude.
It used to be like shameful to say I'm gonna go see my psychiatrist or I'm gonna go see a therapist or something. Like it used to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like, man up, bitch.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
But now it's like a flex. Like, yeah, I'm on it. What's that fucking drug that people used to relax? I'm on Xanax. Like,
Well, my
bro,
dad
we used to
lost
make
the world,
fun of
bro.
people. If you had to, like, I remember we used to make fun of kids. Wait, you take Ritalin? Fuck wrong with you? Like, we used to laugh at people for that shit. Oh, you need Adderall to focus? You're an idiot. Like, we used to roast people for that shit. Now it's like, oh, just pop it like candy for Xanax. Like, there's a whole, and it's interesting because it's like, it's infiltrated the music. If you look at like hip hop, right, in the 90s, right? Verbal, lyrical, things made sense. They're telling you a fucking story. You're listening to like, I don't even listen to Slick Rick, but I can acknowledge the fact that he was like a good rapper, right? He's like telling you a fucking story and shit. Like Kool Moe Dee, all these guys, right? Up until Jay-Z, etc. Then we get into the late 2000s, 2010s, etc. Then you start getting people mumble rapping, not making
I'm
sense.
on lean.
I'm on drugs, etc. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And as the drug use like became more apparent in like the music, right? And people are just open about it. Now you got guys like flexing, like, yeah, I'm on some Xanax right now. Like the regular guys flexing that shit. I'm like, what the fuck? I remember growing up as a kid, like, if you even said that you smoke weed, like we'd kind of be like, huh, what look at you, you fiend, you're a loser. But I don't know, man. It's like cool to be a druggie nowadays. It's crazy to
the
me.
complete opposite.
Well, my
yeah.
dad, like I said,
Please.
product of the 40s. You know, he said you were going to say, "What are you, a nut?"
Yeah.
Right? What are you, a nut? What are you going to strike for? Are you crazy? Right?
Yeah.
That's how they saw it.
Yeah.
And you know what's so interesting? Why is mental illness so much higher now? Like, here's a good thought process for you to think about. If you look at the kind of trans agenda where they say one of the reasons we need to affirm these genders is because if we do not affirm these genders, right, these people could do self-harm, right? How come, if there's just as many trans now as there were, why weren't they doing self-harm?
Because it's cool to do it now? I don't know.
Interesting point.
Why is it that you didn't see all this self-harm in the 50s and the 40s when nobody could affirm their gender? That's really weird because they claim there's just as many then as there are now. Well, that's weird. If that's the case, where's the body count, right? Where's it?
Yeah.
Nowhere. Right? Mental illness has become a trend and a social contagion, and that is a single manifestation of that social contagion, but there are many.
I agree with you, man. It's cool now to say I have, and let's be honest, like nowadays, right? Like the whole psychology board is like run by women. Like they stripped Jordan Peterson of his psychology credentials, and it's like they'll prescribe you whatever. It's like, oh, you feel like you have issues with focusing, or you feel like you're crazy. Cool, let's just give you these fucking drugs. It all, and then you know, I don't even want to get into the pharmaceutical industry, but it's like they're incentivized to tell you that you're crazy, right? So that they can make some money on it.
Well, who are pharmaceuticals going to advertise to? Who are the most prone to being advertised to? And so then you see
It's a vicious circle.
and who happens to be on all those drugs and the antipsychotics and the antidepressants and all of this. Well, same demographic who suffers from a way higher rate somehow than men do, even though men are the ones going through things which cause PTSD and they're going through wars and they're going through all this stuff. But somehow the mental illness is still higher on that side. Kind of weird. Kind of makes you think, well, maybe they are marketing something towards a population demographic which is prone to propaganda.
Yeah. And wait, hold on. And they make money from giving these
They
drugs
do.
out? Wait.
Gajillions, right?
What? What the fuck? Hold on. No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a good trend, though.
It's crazy, bro. Like, and you guys see the fucking circle. We just brought her all the way around, man. Yeah. Bring it back. Social shame is important. Because I remember, you're going to go see a fucking shrink? What's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah.
like,
What are you, nut?
Yeah, you
What's wrong
fucking
with you,
crazy?
Yeah,
You know, they used to call it a shrink. Do people even use that term anymore?
I haven't
really.
heard it.
A shrink?
It's considered a bad word, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, he been spending the whole night,
Yeah,
though.
man.
I just
it's
listening
fucking
like
crazy.
on point, bro. Love it.
All right. Okay, what do we got here?
right.
We got Legato goes, Andrew man, I need my glasses.
Humanoid Typhoon Wilson is the top G of debates. Good to see him on Fresh and Fit.
Good to see you too, man. Thank you so much
Donna
for
Marco
that.
for him. $100.
Yeah. Thank you so much for supporting this show. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
As you know, this particular show, which people really enjoy, has not been treated very fair by some of the companies which are out there. So showing your support is always a good thing. By the way, they have a badass studio here. They gave me the
Appreciate that,
tour
man.
when I came in.
Thanks, bro.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate that, man. What do
got
we
some
got
more here.
here?
Loading up.
Oh, okay.
Reloading.
The Rumble chat, they're going crazy. I can see. They're saying,
W. Andrew.
They're saying, please talk about a topic. Okay. Okay, Andrew. I think the argument for FNF position is that women are better at hiding their intents. Therefore, to experience up to 50 women is a way to see past their intent. Yeah, I think Andrew understands. Sees our perspective on that.
Yeah. So again, from the secular perspective, and we could probably argue about this for an hour, but from the secular perspective, I understand why this push exists, right? I just see some flaws with the entailments of the push, and so we kind of have some grounding disagreements. But I'm not saying that it's not a strategy which is viable that could work, but it depends on the ends. And I think me and Myron only really have this fundamental disagreement on what we want the end to be.
I think
and
we agree
that's
that we
okay.
both. I think
Well,
both of us should have a
ultimately,
family. I think ultimately guys should have a family. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be running around banging girls forever. Like you know what I mean. You should definitely have a family at some point.
I think we're just discussing secular and religion based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a religious guy, then yeah, don't take my advice. Like you probably shouldn't. Like you'll get in trouble
like
with
the
your
caller
religion.
that called in and asked for your advice when he's a Christian, I was
Yeah.
like, bro, what are you doing? But to your point, though, the end does not always justify the means.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, might makes, but it doesn't make right.
there you go.
But it makes. It sure makes.
Everybody's here? All right, cool. Myron's talking about something like the Logan Paul situation, also about the religious reproduction. The religious are producing a lot of secular children. That's actually a good point.
Yeah,
like, I
so
mean, yeah,
to-
like Logan Paul getting with that chick. That's a good
And
example.
I'll respond to it. It's
Sure.
true that you can, if you have 5 children, have 2 of them end up being secular. You still have 3 that aren't. Children usually follow their parents' political positions and their religion. Almost always. And yeah, sometimes they fall off the path, but what's really interesting, if they have that religious foundation to begin with, they end up coming right back around to it. A good example of this, if you were to go back to religion, if you just threw your hands up one day and were like, I'm done, would you go back to Islam?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Then were you raised with that?
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
And doesn't that still to this day kind of guide your intuitions and your morals? You know what I mean?
Of course, it's always a framework and things I operate in. You know.
I mean, the story of the prodigal son.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the idea here.
And that's most of our story, right?
Yeah.
That's most of us seem to have that story.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we got here?
Decent bonfire.
Goes evening, gents. Vasectomies are a giant conspiracy to weaken men. The birth control aspect is just debate. Warn your sons. Don't believe the shills and massive PR campaign with false stats.
Awesome. Yes.
All right, decent bonfire. And he goes too. With a vasectomy, you're still shooting loads inside your own body, but it can't exit. This creates an autoimmune disease that silently poisons you for life. Reversals are not cheap. Matrix attack.
Damn.
To everyone who said I have donated to FNF, though never have, here it is to support the blood sport debater. Great content to make while you visit Miami, Mr. Wilson, FNF. I was the bow tie guy from Saucecast.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Crucible Crew, too, if you're listening, make sure you come on over and donate heavily. These gentlemen were nice enough to invite me down. And we're going to get into some tangling a little bit later,
Some
I'm
girls.
told. Looking
Right now,
forward
actually.
to it.
Yeah.
Yep, we got you.
Let's see. What do we got here? Okay, ask him about the book his wife Rachel wrote about occult feminism and see if he will return with her for another podcast. Yes, we did. He did mention that earlier. These chats came in way earlier, but yes. And yeah, I definitely going to take a look at it. And then we got
Sly
here
Burner.
Sly Burner, $20. Appreciate that, bro. And then Uncle Luke says, there's only one Christian faith that I know takes marriage seriously and actually hold women accountable and shame them in front of the congregation. That's Jehovah's Witnesses. They disfellowship people.
Yeah, so that would be a great example of a consequence, right? A community consequence. Hey, you're messing up, and so we're actually going to publicly shame you for that.
Shame is a very powerful tool.
It is.
It's worked in all cultures and all religions. Don't do it. I've seen that once you announce to the world that you're married without doing a ceremony, the woman can still take your money. The community idea is nice, but it's not above the law.
Well, that's true. It's not. But the social shame is above the law. And so this is the key. The key in is that you're trying to modify the behavior, not necessarily create some new legalese. We want to eliminate the legalese that's causing men the problem to begin with.
Yeah.
We're trying to build the community which will push the social behavior which is desired in women and men. That's the point.
Fair enough. Now Lily goes, Christians have a hard time defining promiscuous body count number. However, the Bible tells us with the woman at the well. Okay. What else we got? Anything else?
He made the chick get him a drink of water too, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh, okay.
Jesus was thirsty and he said, go get me a drink of water, and she did.
Okay, I wasn't aware. WFNF recently went from 169 kilos to 103 kilos, threw 40 kilos off myself, then got gastric sleeve surgery, still going strong. Also started lifting weights at home. Love from Denmark. Shout out to you, bro.
Shout out to you, bro.
Drunky. W. Myron Slippers. I appreciate that. You know, Goku is even though I think Vegeta's superior, but we're doing it for Akira.
What? You think Vegeta's superior to Goku?
I think so, man. He's a better character. Obviously, Goku is stronger, right? Because he's the fucking main person. But I think Vegeta's cooler.
But he went soft.
Vegeta?
Yeah, he went soft. He married Bulma, and he got
Bulma
soft.
304. Yeah, Bulma 304.
Totally.
That was his only fuck up. That was the only fuck up, man.
Not Kakarot though, right? Kakarot.
Chi-Chi had 304 too, though.
But he's never home.
She was only ever with him.
He's never home.
She was.
They
grew up together.
Yeah, Goku was never home. He was always dead, man. That nigga was a terrible dad.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a kid? God. Base Hawaiian. W for FNF for having Base Wilson on. Shout out to you.
And then Godzilla goes, "Hi guys, thanks for the show." Andrew sent me. Shout out to you, bro.
Shout out to you, bro.
And then Legato says,
No,
Andrew,
we did that one already.
We did that one. Caught up, right? Charging. Last one. 20. Was it this last one?
No, that's okay. Rumble.
And then
cool.
20 verse 1 was fire idea. Would be good to put guests through it, especially the over the top ones like Organic and Zerka. Only a matter of time till Pocket. Oh God. Okay, nigga. I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, we got it.
All right. I disagree. Values is something you give yourself. It's a simple economic values dependent on the market, which is our case is women. When men have been using women as a showcase of value all throughout history.
If market is the only determination of what value is from the human experience, then you're going to have to give hoes value, because obviously there's a market for them.
Yeah, he's trying to. Okay, that was from what we were saying from before. Red Pill saying goes, only 3% of virgins on their wedding day. That's true. High majority of men won't marry virgins, so them being virgins is a fairy tale, wishful happy ending scenario. Many men are involuntary virgins and claim religion as cope for being unwanted. It's 2024 and not 1950, sadly.
Let's assume for a second that that's true. Wouldn't you want them to have some type of support network to cope too?
All right. If the argument is that hoes do not add value and that value develops independently, then it stands to reason that adding hoes into a high-value man's life inherently threatens that man's value through unwanted pregnancy, false essay accusation, fuckery, etc.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You need to. That's precisely why you need to identify the women that can do that to you.
Yeah, however, if you're talking about value in and of itself, if that is adding to the value by you doing that, then you have to assign value to the hoe.
Wait, no. Did he say it as value?
No. So his argument is to say, wait a second, if it's true that it's going to teach you all of these things, then the argument that a hoe does not add value doesn't even make sense, right? They would have to add value because it's teaching you how to identify women from being able to do this thing to you, the high-value man, right?
My stance is you're a high-value guy regardless of your notch count. Like, you can be a high-value guy and be a virgin, is what I'm saying. But for you to be able to navigate the dating marketplace appropriately, right? You need to have experience with women. Now, if we're going to attribute that as value as well, I guess we can. But I would say it's not value that you can. It's not value that's assigned to the value that man independently made. If that makes sense.
You're right. So I get what you're saying. You're saying you're high value either way.
Yeah.
But if this is really teaching you all of those skills, right? Then those hoes got to have some value. They're clearly bringing some value because the more of them.
Okay, I see your perspective. You getting with them is okay. I get what you're saying now. Okay, I see that perspective. Ray says, let's be honest. Most of these girls are hers that they are not going to back. They are addicted to attention on TikTok and Instagram. This is not the ancient times. You must adapt. Minority of men will always pipe. Majority of women. Red pill is reality. No, here's the thing, guys. He agrees with that, and he even said before, if we're going to continue on the secular, if we're going to stay on a secular path, then that makes sense. But what he's saying is that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is a whole wide religious adaptation that would curb this, and you predict it to be somewhere in the next 60 to 100 years. I'm assuming 3 generations.
3 generations, and it's something we should push towards.
Yeah.
If you want to see that kind of change happen in society, everybody wants it to be a cheeseburger society. We want it right now. But religion, I mean, just to make the canons originally, it took a long time. These things take a long time, but you shouldn't be discouraged. You should make it a mission.
All right.
Yeah.
JLB Fitness, hey Fresh&Fit. I'm working on a YouTube channel called JLB Fitness. I've been making exercise videos since last November. Do you have any recommendations on more videos I can make? I'm almost out of ideas. Pierce, I love your videos. Keep it up. I'm gonna keep it 1,000 with you, bro. Fitness YouTube is dead. It is a dead niche and genre, my friend. You can only vlog so much on your workouts and your macro eating. It's a dead genre, bro. If you look at all the biggest fitness influencers, they've all switched over to lifestyle and or challenges or whatever the hell it may be nowadays. So try to add another sub niche with your fitness niche, but doing straight workout videos and stuff like that, dude, that's dead. It's not 2013 anymore.
Facts.
Just being honest with you.
Pimp Rogers.
And same. There's a couple genres like this that died. Fitness and pranks.
Yeah, pranks too.
Both died in the same time. So.
No. Atheist here.
Pimp Rogers, atheist here. How about we exempt parents from paying a property tax to fund public schools and let parents use that money to send their kids to the private religious schools of their choice?
Yeah, so that would be school choice, which is a fantastic idea. It's broadly opposed by, you guessed it, Democrats and progressives.
Yeah. Vivek actually was saying this.
Mostly because, why? Females are the teachers. Right? Females are the teachers. And so, yeah, it's broadly opposed. And yes, we should push back as much as possible on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, the public school system is fucked, man. It's ridiculous. In today's day, men need protection from women, kids need protection from single moms, and women need protection from themselves.
Two times.
The real Dank Williams says, Andrew, you're awesome, but Montclair is nowhere near Sacramento. Montclair is in Southern California.
Okay. Well, I didn't remember where it was. I grew up in Joshua Tree. I was just born in Montclair.
Okay. Okay. Caught up.
We got one more rumble right here.
Okay. What's the last one?
We have here, Mr. Reed says,
want to show love to Andrew Wilson and Fresh&Fit. You guys are amazing, and I hope to see Andrew on here more often. Yeah, man. You're going to see him here. He'll be back on Friday as well, guys.
And tonight with some girls.
Yes, he's going to be on with some girls. We're going to actually segue to that here in a second. We're caught up?
Everyone's here. Locals.
Mara, what are your thoughts about Trump Media and the technology Group Corp DJT stock? I want to invest $5K to this because I think it will explode if Trump becomes president. There isn't much financial information for this company, so it's a gamble to invest in the stock. Do you think it's worth the gamble? This is what I'll tell you, bro. When it comes to investing in stocks or crypto or anything that might be volatile like that, invest whatever you're willing to lose. That's the best advice I can give you. I'm not going to tell you to do it or not, but just put money in where if you lose it, you wouldn't care because you don't want to be emotionally tied to it. All right? That's it. Cool. Guys, we're going to be back with Andrew Wilson and some lovely ladies.
Andrew, where can I find you, brother?
Yeah, you can find me at the one and only Crucible on YouTube. Make sure that if you want any of the back content, you want to go to thecruciblevideo.live. That's thecruciblevideo.live. Become a member over there. If you want to see the backlog, there's going to be tons more added to it, including the great TikTok invasions that we do. Hope to see all of you there.
Boom. Perfect. Cool. So we'll catch you guys back here in, I don't know.
10:30.
You think so?
Yeah, because Chris,
Chris here?
10:30.
All right.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, I know we said we were going to start earlier this week, guys.
Next week,
I guess.
Hopefully.
Yeah. But and as far as the 20 verse 1, guys, we'll do it again. Like I said before, we had some other. I think someone else was doing it in town at the same time, and then on top of that, also, it was right after Ultra Weekend, bro. So like all these chicks are hungover and shit, man. Like,
it's what it is.
It is what it is, man. But we're gonna definitely do another one for y'all, man, and we're gonna make it better. But we definitely got your feedback, and we're gonna make it way better, hotter girls, and it'll be more interesting. And we'll obviously and guests too. And we're gonna add some guests to it too. It's gonna be a good time. We'll catch you guys. Peace.
I ran so far away.
All right, what up, guys? Welcome to the Just Pearly Things YouTube channel, and welcome to another episode of, this isn't even Pearl Daily, but, you know, another day of Pearl being vindicated. Vindicated. Correct. Everybody hates Pearl. I have been the bad guy for a year. So, for those of you that don't know, I want to tell this story, okay? About a year ago, one of my, again, I say this from the point of view that I really like Candace Owens. She was the first one that broke the story. I'm a fan. I would say she heavily influenced my political opinions, okay? She's great. The stuff she's done with BLM, amazing. Awesome. But she released a piece a year ago. And a year ago, she had a video titled, "Steven Crowder is a Monster." Now, in this video, Candace talked about how she got ring footage from Steven Crowder's wife that showed abuse in the household. Now, Crowder had recently announced that he was getting a divorce and that his wife had filed. That was all he said. To me, I don't think that's playing the victim. I don't think that's disparaging a partner. I don't think that's bad. But Candace felt like he was playing the victim. So, somehow, she got into her hands private ring footage from their family home. Now, in this family home, I've shown this footage a million times on the platform. You're welcome to go to my last live stream and point it out and watch it, but I'm not going to show it again. But in this footage, Crowder is, having an argument with his wife. And at the end of the footage, it said, that Crowder went into the house and by his own admission said, "I will F you up," to his wife. Now, to the average person, this would look like Crowder is an abuser. But most women had not seen what I have seen. Now, I've interviewed 1,000 women. And that's just the women that have been logged into our system. I did shows for about 2 years where I would bring in men and women together to talk about relationships. And when this happened, I was red-pilled by the fact that women would often bring up instances of abuse. And they would tell me a little snippet of a story. Now, oftentimes, the snippet of the story they told me was very, very misleading. An example that I bring up often was a young woman told me that she was abused by her ex-boyfriend. Now, initially, when women tell me that they were abused, I generally would believe them. I wouldn't really second guess something like that. But in this case, someone in the chat said to ask more questions, ask if she filed a police report. Now, I asked, she said no. I asked why. And oftentimes what these women will say is that they were scared to go to the police or they were scared of repercussions. This didn't make sense that they were okay with speaking on my podcast and okay with the repercussions of, disparaging his name publicly, but not the repercussions that would happen when you go to a police. Because as we know, police requires evidence. So this made me realize that many times when women tell stories, they give you a little piece, but not the full story. And oftentimes when you see footage, texts that are leaked to the public that look really bad, oftentimes they're not in full context. So when I watched the ring footage, the wife kept saying, "Your abuse is sick." And this kept ringing an alarm bell in my head because typically when you think of abuse, it's a man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man. Now, feminists have gotten into our institutions and what they do is they first want to confuse you. We can't know the definition of anything anymore. You see them do this with the, I don't want to say the word because of YouTube, but the man and women thing where we can't say the difference between those. And now you see that with abuse. They change the definition. It used to be one person hitting the other. Now, financial abuse, coercive control, they add in all these words that don't really mean anything. And it confuses everybody to the point that we don't know what happened. Now, back to this young woman on my show. This woman told me that she was pushed down a flight of stairs. And on the surface, I thought, well, that's wrong. He shouldn't do that. But I asked a couple more questions, and what she left out was that she was actually trespassing. And he'd asked her nicely to leave his house, and apparently his daughter was there watching them argue. Now, this woman got pushed because he was pushing her out of the house. Now, maybe he shouldn't have did that. Maybe he should have called the police. I don't know. But that's a very different story. And when I watched this ring footage, that was my initial reaction. She kept saying, your abuse is sick, your abuse is sick. And I couldn't get rid of the feeling that she was acting. I couldn't get rid of it. And everybody said that I was mean, that I hate women, that I'm biased, that all of this stuff. But this was what I believed to be true. And I just had to stick to my guns on this. I just had to. So I gave my opinion, and I just watched and waited for the evidence to come forward. So fast forward a couple of months later. Again, I don't believe that footage. A couple of months later, there is an affidavit that is going around. Now, I got my hands on this. And this had over 100 pages of court documents, all right, from their divorce. Now, I had to spend a whole weekend reading through this stuff. A whole weekend spent reading 100 pages of documentation. Now, again, I knew, and mind you, I'm going to take a sidestep. I'm working on a divorce documentary. And in the divorce documentary, I have interviewed men that have been victims of divorce rape. Now, what is divorce rape? I'm going to say divorce rape. That is when the woman legally steals the children and legally steals the man's assets. In my opinion, this is a modern day slavery where men are forced to give up their children and their assets and pay a woman for 18 years. To me, that's wrong. I had a great father, and I know how important fathers are to their children. But through all this research, I also found out that many kids are alienated from their father. Many children think that their dad was a deadbeat dad or in some way the bad guy because of the stories the mother told them. I do not find this to be true or common, men that do the same thing to the mother. It happens, but it is nowhere near as common. These are my findings. So again, when I'm hearing that Crowder's this abusive monster, I'm sorry, my spidey senses were tingling. I'd watched Crowder for years. Yes, maybe he could be eccentric. Yes, maybe he could be an asshole. But I didn't quite buy this narrative that he was somehow an abuser. Now, more employees came forward alleging that Crowder was an abusive boss. And my mind went to immediately that I don't think he's abusive because how would he still have employees? I also was wondering how Hillary was surviving. And, just more questions that just didn't add up. And I've been in situations, guys, where ex-employees have said things about me that are not true. And the problem is the public takes their word as gospel. So when an employee came out and said that Crowder was an abuser, I kept thinking, is this what the men of this country are? I mean, how are you abused in an influencer job? This stuff did not make sense to me. None of it was making sense. Okay. Now, so keep going. I read 100 pages of court documents. And I find out in these court documents that Hillary was not watching the kids. A nanny was doing most of the work. Now, if you're a stay-at-home wife, why do you need a full-time nanny? To me, this signaled a character flaw. A character flaw. Either maybe she was not mentally well, I don't know. Maybe, but she wasn't doing, the job that she was supposed to do. Another thing I found weird in these court documents was that she was writing in her room. I kept thinking, what was she writing about? Now, from my experience interviewing men that have been victims of family court issues, I know that many times, years ahead, the women will be in the men's friends, family, and colleagues' ears. These women will tell stories of these crazy abuse and all of this stuff. Very often it is unbeknownst to the man. The man has no idea. This often happens years in advance. Years, okay? This is what I came to know. So when I hear these patterns, I thought it was weird. I thought it was weird that all of the conservatives all jumped on this at the same time and reported that Crowder was an abuser. None of this was adding up. How are they so sure? Well, my thought was this woman has probably been in their ears for years. Many of these people are being manipulated and they have no idea. Now, from the outside looking in, you might think, oh, Pearl's just an evil woman hater, right? That's how it would appear. And for years, I have been attacked. I have been told I'm bullying. I have been told that I'm messing up the facts, that I don't know what I'm talking about. But this was, I couldn't get rid of this feeling in my gut. I just knew it. I knew exactly what she was doing when the ring footage came out. When all of the conservative commentators started coming out about it, I knew. I just knew. And everybody said I was crazy. They said I was wrong. And I couldn't help but thinking how wrong this was. Traditional conservatives push marriage. They want men to get married. And to that I say, you are doing a marketing campaign as to why men shouldn't get married. In my head, Crowder did everything right. He waited till marriage. He married a good Christian woman in the church. It seemed on paper everything went right. But men watch when you see how everybody responds when a woman accuses a guy of abuse. And same with all of these ex-employees. All of this just seemed weird to me. Okay, it all just seemed odd. And everyone said I was the bad guy. Everyone said I was evil. And so I just had a feeling. I knew. Now, this week comes by. Oh. And there's a man, coming forward again about this workplace abuse. And lo and behold, it turns out that I was right about everything. Pearl was right. Oh, okay. I'm going to show you guys this thread with information about, I forgot. How do I do this? I can't. I have to move it this way, don't I? Oh, shoot. Hold on, guys. I have to. I'm going to let Louder with Crowder in 1 second. Let me just show the tweet thread and then we can talk about it. So again, guys, everyone said that I was just, oh, Pearl. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, I shared it. Now I'm going to make this public. Okay, so now the facts are coming out. Okay. So Gerald has a whole video, and we're going to bring him on stream, so I'm not going to play it. But he goes through some of the facts that nobody was talking about. Everybody just took her side. And we have to ask these questions because women will feel more and more vindicated if nobody asks questions. You know, some of these women are malicious. Some women, I think, just believe their own lies. I don't know. But, you know, this was definitely malicious. Okay. Per Hillary's father, in a Hillary group text thread, here is the message liked by Hillary. This whole thing was an extortion scheme involved assembling a team trying to destabilize Stephen. So she was trying to get more money out of the divorce. And she wanted to destabilize him to get more money. Okay, February 17th, 2023, Hillary and Jared met in Atlanta. Jared's the former employee in Atlanta to discuss their strategy and took this picture. February 20th, 2023. Now, mind you, why is a former employee getting involved in a divorce? A divorce! Why are any of you, why are you guys getting involved in a, wait for it, divorce? That doesn't make any sense. And mind you guys, these wives know all the people that hate their husbands. I mean, and I talked about this yesterday. If you wanted to do a hit campaign and you know every single person that dislikes the husband, you can paint a completely different picture. February 20th, any scenario where Hillary and I team up is the end of Stephen. It's his worst nightmare. Watch the real fear enter his eyes when Tim asks the question. Jared to Hillary, the former employee. I think there's a scenario where several of us would be willing to attest to all of that. I just don't want him anywhere near those kids. That really disturbs me. Now, guys, many people are coming at Stephen because he has his employees sign an NDA. You have to do this, and I'll tell you why. There was someone that I did not have sign an NDA. This man, with no evidence, said that I was a colonizer that gave out slave contracts. That was what he said. Doesn't matter that I have people that worked for me from the beginning. They ran with this to the point that this made media articles. Media articles. And I didn't have an NDA and I didn't have money. I didn't have money to defend myself, but I sure as hell would have if I had it. So this whole thing that you guys are saying an NDA isn't free speech, you don't get the right to talk shit about your employers and build a brand off of it. That's not anti-free speech. Okay, so, and what is this guy doing? This whole scheme was to maximize profits so she couldn't get through the court. Per Hillary's father, to Hillary and other families in the group chat, the longer the divorce proceedings go on, the worse for Steven Crowder. Do you guys remember the ring footage? Do you remember I said this is out of context. Hillary deleted all other footage from the house and lake residence, which was barred by the court. It turns out she's getting $25,000 a month and going on X asking for work. If abuse is getting paid $25,000 a month, I mean, shit, sign me up. Sign me up. I mean, guys, this is crazy. Okay, Hillary hired entertainment superstar lawyer Brian Friedman as part of her PR attack against Stephen. Friedman represented Trevor Bauer's false accuser, and Friedman represented the same journalist who leaked the ring footage. Hillary tried to have Joe Lewis removed by falsely claiming that Joe was dangerous. The dog! This chick not only came for his reputation, but the dog! Why? Not the dog! Evil. All right, Hillary sent the private and unlisted residential address to Jared. Shortly after Jared received Stephen's personal address, Stephen received this threatening message. Now, guys, I knew it. And there's ways that you can pick this stuff out. And I want to say the number one way, because to the average person, I don't blame you guys. You wouldn't know. The only reason I know this is because I've been to the other side. I interview guys on the other side of divorce, so I know how it goes. You have to ask, did they file a police report? Family court is not based off of evidence. It's based on a balance of probabilities, meaning it was more likely that it happened than didn't happen, and it's up to the discretion of a judge. These are really common, okay? So when I say this stuff, that's the number one question, and you need to get details. What led up to the fight? What specifically happened? Does this person have a pattern? Like, these are questions we have to ask. And same with the disgruntled former employees. He raised $70,000 off of you guys just believing a story. We can trust, but we need to verify, okay? And most of the time in these cases, there are gag orders where the men can't talk. And the problem is a lot of these judges, if the man talks, he gets in trouble and is held a lot of times in contempt of court, where the women are generally freely able to talk. You know, it depends on the judge, but that's not uncommon. Okay, so now I'm going to bring on, okay, let me see. Admit. 1 second, guys. Okay, I think he should be in. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Busy day, but doing well.
Yeah, I can tell. So, so I'm curious, how long has this been going on?
So we know that there has been this kind of extortion scheme from Hillary, at least for the last year and a half. But it's been going on for basically since the divorce was filed in late 2021. And we didn't really know the full extent of what was going on. We knew that the divorce was going to go public. It was then leaked, not by us, but by somebody else. And then we had to address the fact that there was a divorce that actually existed, because we knew that the strategy was going to be to try and leverage in some way the publicity that could be negative, just for the mere fact of having a divorce. And little did we know that behind the scenes, all of this scheming was going on. But for about the last year or so, we've known that this has been going on while we've been taking all of these punches along the way.
Yeah, and it's not like you guys have been responding at all. You guys have ignored it for the most part.
No, and it's that, I think, Pearl, that's one of the most frustrating things about this, is that we tried to just keep our heads down, do the work that we do, and put a show together for people to laugh at, to enjoy, to, hear current events and, what's going on in politics, all the different like cultural aspects of the show that we really enjoy, and kept getting hit pieces coming out, kept getting things being said about us, kept having to deal with interviews that were being given, all these different things that were going on. And we just said, look, let's just do what we do. And hopefully these people will honor their commitments. At some point, they'll say, you know what? In Jared's case, he'd been gone from the business for about 6 years, somewhere around there. Maybe it's time to move on with life. Maybe it's time not to be involved in any of this stuff anymore, and certainly not to violate an agreement that he entered into willingly in the first place. And for Hillary, just to get this done and behind her so that she can move on with her life and focus on her family.
Yeah.
I genuinely want that. Even now, knowing what's gone on, I still want that for her and for them. I don't enjoy any of this, but I got put in a position where I either had to do this and just let everybody know what was going on, or keep taking the attacks.
Well, and the thing is, women can get divorced and it doesn't have to be a spectacle. Because I saw her ex account, and I just thought it was so weird how this ex account comes out of nowhere. All the conservatives are following it. It was just like weird to me. And she's putting rebuilding from the rubble. What the hell is rebuilding from the rubble? You're getting $25K a month. That sounds like a house.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate to tell you what I think it sounded like to me. I immediately, when I saw that, I just kind of thought back to her saying that she doesn't really have social media. And I thought, oh no, here we go. Like, now she has social media. Like you said, all the people that were following her were it was a little surprising to me that many people were following her from the kind of the conservative sphere. Maybe they just wanted to keep an eye on what was going on. I have no idea what their interest was there. But seeing that and seeing the kind of posts that were going up made me think, like, okay, here's more of it, because I knew that this PR campaign was going on to assemble assets to put pressure on Stephen to, give her more in the divorce that she would ever get in any kind of court. And I thought, okay, this is the vehicle. This is what she's going to do. And part of me was like, still like, please just don't do this. Please don't do this.
Yeah.
This doesn't make sense. This isn't going to help anybody. This isn't going to help the kid. Whatever grievances can be had in a divorce, let's just say that is real, right? Set that aside. You can have those grievances. At some point, you have to go, okay, it's time to end this. Wasting resources, really bringing a bunch of stuff into the public that doesn't need to be in the public, and not really serving the interests of either herself or the children. It's like, let's just end it. Let's let everybody go on with their life. And unfortunately, it didn't seem like that was going to be an option on the table, especially given all the stuff that we had seen go on with this group of people that really she was recruiting to go and help in this extortion plot. And it floored me when I saw it. I was like, this can't be real. This can't be the kinds of text messages that are being sent around, especially early on, before anything had come out. I mean, that's the thing that really struck me. It was like, before the divorce was even mentioned on air, this plan was hatched. And I don't know what to say. I mean, it's frustrating. It's difficult to see, and hopefully we can put an end to all of this. Hopefully this is the last time that we will have to discuss this.
No,
and that can go away.
Even the ring footage, I knew she was planning it. I've seen it before, because I could tell that's what they were arguing about, was because she kept saying abuse. So she was trying to get a ring footage to, from my point of view anyway, to like leak to the public.
It looked, when I saw it, it looks a little weird to me.
Yeah.
That conversation, and there's some details that I can't reveal that I know about what happened in that conversation. There's some stuff that's publicly available that people can go out and find. But I just looked at it and I thought, man, this is weird. Like, why are they choosing to use this? And then it made it very clear to me why, because of, the perception of Stephen in that moment, without any context of what was going on, of him going outside to have a cigar, to kind of do what he would do to relax, to try to kind of decompress if there was a conversation that had happened earlier that was an argument or a tense conversation. And then to see that, it just made me wonder what was going on. I don't know if it was pre-planned or not. I mean, I think that's for people to kind of speculate and make their own judgment on, but it just looked weird to me that was happening. And then that it was first in the media, that was being released, when really the only thing that Stephen had ever said was acknowledging the divorce and saying that he, on this show, wanted privacy. So it didn't seem, none of this, look, we're not victims necessarily, but we have been the target. We have been the target, and we have been going through a bit of a crap. I'll say the nicest word I can think of in this scenario, and dealing with a lot of stuff that we just kind of put our heads down, took the punches, and tried to just continue to do the job until we were forced to do something different. And that's what we did today by putting this information out so that people could see actual court filings, not stuff that is just opinion. Because there's been plenty of that out there, and it's been wrong. Well, and
I didn't think anything he said was disrespectful, like when he first announced the divorce, at all. And it was all just strange to me, but I'd seen similar patterns of behavior, like when I interview men that have gone through this, where they kind of tell part of the truth, but not the whole truth. So did you know that Jared was going to release that video?
No, not at all. I mean, look, the timeline with Jared, and if you'll give me a second, I'll just kind of lay this out, because this really was the impetus for all of this. Jared was in the text messages. We knew that he had been brought into this scheme to try and help apply pressure. He inserted himself into this divorce process and the custody at the time battle for you know, who was going to have custody of the kids, what was the custody going to look like, which is normal in a divorce. Like you have to go through that process to figure out how that all is going to work out. And he inserts himself into this process. And it comes to my attention that he is behind the scenes doing all this stuff. And immediately we're like, okay, I've got to get Jared to understand, like, out of nowhere, you can't just come back 5-6 years later and start inserting yourself into this process. And by the way, you have an NDA with us, like you voluntarily entered into an agreement with us. And those things can be used as simple. And I know you understand what an NDA is. It can be used for something as simple as making sure an address doesn't become public, like Stephen's address that was doxed by Hillary that did become public. It's a safety issue for so many people. And then I sent him a cease and desist. All he had to do was write back and say, hey, all right, I get it. I understand it. I've overstepped some bounds. I'll knock it off. Didn't do anything with that, just completely ignored it. So I said, okay, we got to send something with a little bit more teeth. How about we do a Form 202? This is what my attorney said would be something that you would do in preparation for a lawsuit, but not necessarily being required to file a lawsuit afterwards. But it does mean, like, hey, knock it off and tell us how far this goes. That's the only reason we filed the 202 is because he completely ignored what we were doing earlier by just saying, hey, knock it off, cease and desist. And then he releases that video. Now, what's really interesting is that the window for the deposition for the Form 202 that we filed, that the judge ruled could go forward even after he tried to fight it, the window for that deposition expired March 15th. I don't know about you. Today's the 27th. Yesterday's the 26th. 11 days after the expiration of the order to give a deposition, which he had not been asked to give yet, he goes out and does a video for a lawsuit that doesn't exist. I hadn't sued him yet. But you saw today that I did, because it became very clear that Jared was going to do whatever he could to try to apply pressure and to try to hurt Stephen, to hurt this company, to hurt the mission and the brand. Everything. He was going to do everything that he could and would not stop. And it just seemed completely disingenuous to me. He was lying in his video about us saying he couldn't talk to his friends, us saying that we could ask him about any conversation he ever had. No. Just conversations about the agreement that you voluntarily entered into. Conversations about the company that you said, hey, I'm not going to talk about the company. Here's my signature. Those are the conversations. You can talk to your friends about whatever else you want. If you want to talk about sports, music, politics, whatever, go talk to your friends. This is not a First Amendment issue. This is about honoring your agreements. This is about being an honorable individual and not plotting behind the scenes to try to keep a man from his kids and also put enough public pressure on him so that you could help Hillary get more money than she would ever get in court, even though Stephen had offered way more money than she would ever get in court. It wasn't even about that. But never. It was never good enough. And when I saw that video, I said, okay, he's never going to stop. We have to file suit so he understands that we are serious.
And guys, NDAs are not unlawful at all. And I'm telling and I'm telling you, I want people to understand this. If I had NDAs in the beginning of my YouTube career, it would have solved me so many problems. The issue you get with former employees is they can say anything and they get views and money for doing so. I had a whole year of shit that I got because I didn't do it. I didn't see the need or I didn't care about NDAs in the beginning. Especially in this industry, it just gives them license to literally say whatever they want.
Well, I wish they weren't necessary.
Yeah.
I think, and that's where you're coming from too. Like there's this idealistic view that you should just trust people and they should be treated well enough to where they're never going to go out and say anything. It's like, you don't understand human nature. I've literally had people tell me that they will move on and not say a thing about us if we don't say a thing about them. And that didn't happen. No. I get it. Like, I understand. I've had people with the best of intentions that they get frustrated about a situation, not even talking about here. And I've had other businesses where they would get frustrated about a situation and all of a sudden start spreading rumors because they're mad. Listen, former employees are former employees for a reason. Yeah. That can sometimes be good, meaning they've taken a step in their career. They're going to go on and do something on their own. That's fantastic. We wish them well every single time that happens. But sometimes it's because they couldn't do this particular job. Either the skill set wasn't there or wasn't a right fit, wasn't the kind of work environment that they necessarily wanted. It's a really hard job to do. We get up very early in the morning and we sprint for most of the day to make this stuff happen, and that's not for everybody. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing for them. It's just not for everybody.
Yeah.
But what happens is people get frustrated and then they leave and then they have sour grapes and say, well, I want to go back. I mean, can you imagine holding a grudge for 6 years that you then randomly, but not so randomly, come back on just because a man is getting a divorce? Like, it doesn't, there's nothing honorable about that. If what, Jared may want to claim was true and that Stephen is the monster that nobody sees and they should see him, then he was the monster for the entire 6 years that you were gone. Why now, Jared?
Yeah.
Why did you all of a sudden think that this was a problem that you had to emerge from the shadows to solve? I don't have any respect for that. I don't wish him ill. I don't hate Jared. I just wish that he hadn't done this. I hate his behavior. I wish he would keep his agreements and move on with his life.
Well,
but he hasn't.
And my question when I was listening to it, I just couldn't believe this many people were like, God, I always call them simps. Like, I couldn't believe this many people fell for it, because my initial thought was, okay, if Crowder is this like abusive guy, if he's so crazy abusive, how does he still have employees? That's my first question. If he's so crazy, like this awful workplace. And then my second question was, are they trying to build a brand or make money off of it? And they both were. There was a literal GoFundMe link.
I know, for a lawsuit that didn't exist. I'm not kidding. When he released that video and that call for support, I had not sued him. And it was clear. I told our attorney when we sent over the document for the 202, I said, make sure it says in bold letters, this is not a lawsuit. Like, I don't want there to be any confusion whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is not a lawsuit. This is knock it off. Tell me how far it goes.
Yeah.
This could be the end of it, right? It could have been the end of it right there. But then when he did what he did, I'm like, okay, well, this is just never going to stop. And I have to basically go, do I want to look bad for suing somebody and maybe not respond to this and let this person just continue to trash us? Or do I want to defend the people that work here, the 30 plus employees that we have, the blood, sweat, and tears that they poured into this business, and the mission that we have, where we got the Nashville Manifesto released. We helped parents in Chippewa Falls make sure that they were notified in the case of a school shooter potentially, and uncovered another one that happened in the spring just before the one that we talked about that happened in the fall of last year. Like, there are a lot of things that we do that are very important and very difficult things to do. And I just finally got to the point where I was like, well, I gave him every out. I hate doing this. I hate the position that I'm in, and I take no pleasure whatsoever in it. But I have to, otherwise I'm throwing these 30 plus people under the bus and saying, I don't care about you guys. They put me in an untenable position.
No.
And I hope that there's a reasonable resolution that can come from that. I still hope that. But I can't let him continue to do this. I just cannot do it.
No, I have literally been in that exact same position. I've been in the exact, like, very, very similar. And so that's why everyone that's saying that NDAs aren't lawful, I'm like, you have never been in a position where you needed an NDA. And
No.
I'm happy for you. I'm really happy for you. But the issue you get, especially in media, is that people can literally say whatever they want, make money, literally make $70K off of this.
Yeah. Well, you were onto this pretty early, right?
Yeah.
You were kind of like, hold on, something doesn't smell right here. Not a lot of people were. They wanted to just hate Stephen. And like you said, somebody can go out tomorrow and just make stuff up out of thin air. And we have no how do we prove it didn't happen? You can just continue to make things up as you go. And so there is some protection provided by an NDA. Like, hey, this is part of it. I have to sign NDAs, not just with this company, but with other companies and vendors.
Yeah.
And things like that. It's like mutual non-disparagements, things that are very, very reasonable to make sure that there is some protection that you can go back and say, well, look, you said that you would do this. And by the way, no one out there ever has to sign an NDA. Ever. I would never force anybody. You just can't work here if you don't. That's the only thing. That is required at so many jobs. I think UPS makes you sign an NDA. Somebody can fact check me out there, but there are so many companies that make you sign an NDA so that you can't disclose proprietary or private information. It's just a normal standard thing to do. And it is not a problem with free speech. You can believe in free speech the way that we do, and we champion free speech, and say, hey, by the way, you can't reveal the private address of where Stephen Crowder lives because it's a security concern for him and his children. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about. And it's not limited to that, but there are other things. But that is like the most easily understandable portion. Well, like, yeah, well, that makes sense. You can not sign an NDA and go get a job somewhere where that's not required. That's totally fine as well. And when you're leaving a company voluntarily, like Jared was, you certainly don't have to sign one then either. But when you do, you need to honor your agreements. And he hasn't been doing that. And it's frustrating because I counted Jared as one of my friends. And when he left, I didn't really have much contact, if any, with him for a long time. But then to see him doing these kinds of things is really frustrating to me because I know that it would have been the last thing that I would have expected from him. And so it's difficult, but at the same time, I would rather he not make any further mistakes. And so hopefully this lawsuit will get people's attention. Hey, knock it off. This can't keep going on. And we'll see where this goes. I don't know. But I wanted to touch on one quick thing that you said, and I mentioned it briefly. You've been onto this for a little while, and you took a lot of arrows for this because people said you were just defending Steven Crowder, or that you were on our payroll. Are you on our payroll, by the way? Because if you are, I didn't know, and I'm supposed to be in charge of that. And it doesn't really look good if the CEO doesn't know. Of course not. You're not on our payroll, right? Like you were onto this, and you took a lot of arrows for this. And hopefully today people see like, hey, you weren't bringing this from nowhere. You've seen this kind of stuff before, and it just reeked of it initially. I'm glad you saw that because that was very, very good to see. But I couldn't comment on it, obviously, at the time. We weren't doing any of that. But man, I tell you what, you can really tell who your friends are when stuff like this happens. Who gives you the benefit of the doubt, who stands by your side, and who doesn't.
Well, I just couldn't believe the simping. It was just driving me nuts. You guys just believe women, a lot of the conservatives just believe women with a story, and we need to verify these facts. And again, guys, if we're going to throw the abuse term around, you need a police report. You need one. That is the only court that is based on evidence.
Yeah.
So they keep this month. Apparently, I work for you guys. I work for the Daily Wire. Like this month, I work for.
Wow,
everybody.
you're busy.
I know. I was like, damn, I'm demonetized. I should give them my cash app.
Well, I think you're right. Like it's weird it's weird. And I'm not ascribing this to any particular person. So nobody read between the lines. I am speaking very generally, but going back to Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation with, Christine Blasey Ford. And they were like, believe all women. We're like, whoa. No, don't just believe all women. Don't believe all men. Don't believe all anything.
Yeah.
Like, have evidence and have facts to back it up. But then when something like this happens, it's like, oh, I stand with so-and-so. And I was like, well, why? What evidence do you have that what they're saying is true? Like you should operate that way all the time. Don't get carried away with an opinion because you dislike somebody. Don't get carried away with an opinion because you feel for somebody. You can still feel for somebody and say, divorce is terrible. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Or with what you're going through, whether they're at fault or not. But don't run down the line of, oh, that guy's a monster because they had an argument that involved no yelling, right? In that backyard video that we saw. Don't run down that line, especially when there's years of evidence to the contrary. There are passionate people out there. I mean, gosh, I've been in arguments with my wife that were more severe. And we barely argue that much. So there have been moments where you're just like, honey, that I wasn't at my best. I'm really sorry. And you make up and you love one another. It's just frustrating, Pearl, because they go and they run with it. And then you have to come back and go, but this is what we preach against. Don't become something that we hate just because it's convenient. Well, and we saw a lot of that.
And what I have found in a lot of these cases, women poison the well years in advance. So it's almost like if maybe there was mutual friends, and I'm not saying this happened or didn't. I think the facts will come out eventually, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But what I have found is that women poison the well with mutual friends, colleagues, etc. And so when, a clip or something goes viral, they'll all confirm it because they've heard stories from this woman for years. I find that that's like every other divorce case I interview.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of experience with divorce cases. I had one of my best friends went through a divorce, but I didn't really know much about it at the time. This has been a crash course in the tactics of a divorce, and it is eye-opening. It is eye-opening to see the system and how it is structured, and it almost takes somebody who hasn't been divorced to be able to help reform the system, because otherwise you're just kind of somebody who's been divorced and you're frustrated about what happened to you. Well, I haven't been divorced, Don't plan on it ever. My wife and I have talked about this. We will figure out a way rather than go through divorce. But the system does need to change.
Yeah.
It really, really does. It is geared towards women and against men. And sometimes, look, I understand why those things evolve. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I understand that there can be a power imbalance in a lot of these relationships, but it doesn't mean right and wrong. It doesn't mean somebody is the victim and somebody is the aggressor. So we've got to get away from that. And we've also got to get away from the ease with which people get divorced. It's terrible. Like, as a Christian, I want people to respect marriage, to get married, to have a family, but to do it thoughtfully. And seeing the divorce tear families apart, seeing this divorce specifically and what it's done, my gosh, man, make good choices. And then if stuff gets tough, just try to work it out. And I know that's what was happening here. It was being worked on at the time of the divorce being filed. It was being worked on, and I just wish that process had been able to play out.
Well, there's a guidebook, it's called How to Destroy a Man. Have you read it?
Really?
Yeah, Google
No.
it. It's called How to Destroy a Man. It's exactly what she's doing, actually. There's like a guidebook. You can find
Wow.
it online on how to use the system to destroy men. And it goes as far to use the media to destroy men, because the way that the media reports on information, as we saw, it's as if he was guilty.
100%.
And if the victim, it even goes so far to describe that if the victim is a woman or a child, the media is more likely to report on it. It also tells you how to use the police. So, because if there's ever a story that indicates that they might be incompetent, they're more likely to act. And it's really effed up, actually. There's an entire guidebook that instructs
That's
women on how
crazy.
to do this, and it's completely legal. So I really think
Wow.
that